At my son's pre-wedding rehearsal dinner, the bride's father suddenly pulled me into a dark corner and whispered in a trembling voice, "Pretend we don't know each other." I froze when I looked closely at his face. This was my college best friend. His eyes were wide open, filled with terror, as if he were fleeing from a ghost. What he revealed next didn't just shock me, but thrust upon me a powerful conspiracy, forcing me to choose between my son's happiness and both our lives. Welcome to today's story. Before we dive in, drop a comment telling us where you're tuning in from. We love connecting with our global audience. Quick reminder, this narrative blends dramatized elements for storytelling and reflection purposes. Names and details are crafted for the tale, but the lessons might resonate with you. The rehearsal dinner was everything Marcus had dreamed of. Soft amber lights draped across Riverside Manor's grand hall, casting warmth over 60 guests celebrating my son's wedding weekend. The air smelled of roasted autumn vegetables and spiced cider, quintessential Virginia in October. Laughter echoed off stone walls as friends toasted Marcus and his bride-to-be Olivia. I stood near the bar with bourbon watching my son. He looked so much like Catherine, her bright eyes, easy smile. 5 years since lung cancer took her, and I still caught myself turning to share thoughts with her. Tonight, I wish she could see this. Our boy 29, an architect with his own firm, marrying a woman who seemed perfect. Olivia Sterling sat beside Marcus, radiant in cream silk. She laughed at his college buddy's joke, her hand resting on my son's arm, with casual intimacy that spoke of real love. Or so I thought. Victor Hayes, I presumes. I turned. A man in his early 60s, tall, distinguished charcoal suit with burgundy pocket square, salt and pepper hair trimmed, beard warm smile. I recognized him from photos. Lawrence Sterling, Olivia's father. "Mr. Sterling," I extended my hand. "Great to finally meet you." His handshake was firm. "Please call me Lawrence. Marcus is a fine young man. You've raised him well." "Thank you," I gestured to the bartender. "Can I get you something Scotch neat?" He leaned against the bar, scanning the room with practiced ease. "Beautiful venue. Olivia's been planning this for months. She's got excellent taste." I watched him closely. Something felt off about his mannerisms, the way he held his glass, the slight head tilt when he laughed. "You know," Lawrence said quietly, his tone shifting, "this reminds me of a party years ago. Columbia University, fall 1984, Hartley Hall dorm. Someone threw a celebration with god-awful punch made from grain alcohol and Hawaiian punch." My hand froze. Columbia, Hartley Hall, 1984. I set my glass down slowly. "What did you say?" Lawrence turned to face me, fully smile still in place, but eyes suddenly serious. "Room 314. You snored like a freight train. I covered when you missed Professor Ashford's exam because you ate bad tacos from that truck on Amsterdam Avenue." The room tilted. "Derek." The laugh that followed was quiet, familiar, unmistakable. Derek Morrison, my college roommate. The guy who disappeared into theater after graduation, who I hadn't seen in 15 years. "Keep your voice down," he murmured, smile never wavering. "We need to look pleasant for anyone watching." What the hell are you doing here?" I was hired to pretend, along with 4 other actors. Victor Olivia's entire family is fake. Every single person she's introduced as a relative. We're all professionals, paid to play parts. I gripped the bar. "That's insane. Why would—" I didn't ask questions when I took the gig. Good money, straightforward role. But 3 days ago, I overheard a phone call. The woman playing Olivia's aunt was talking about the timeline and securing the assets. Then she mentioned your son's name, and yours. My throat went dry. "Assets." Derek glanced over his shoulder. I started digging. The man playing Olivia's brother. He's got a record. Fraud, identity theft, elder exploitation. 2 others have priors. "Victor, this isn't a wedding. It's a setup." "For what?" "I don't know yet, but it's happening fast, and your son is the target." Derek's hand trembled. "I know how this sounds, but I couldn't walk away. Not when I saw your name on the contract. Not when I realized Marcus Hayes was your Marcus." I stared at him. "If this is real, why not go to the police? With what a hunch these people are pros. If I spook them, they'll disappear, and Marcus will never know what almost happened. We need proof. But first, we need time." "Time for what?" Derek pressed something into my palm, a single red pill in a plastic baggie. Antihistamine. High dose, but safe. Tomorrow at the ceremony, take this exactly 1 hour before the vows. It'll cause Hive's facial swelling, difficulty breathing, classic allergic reaction. Dramatic enough to stop the wedding, but temporary. I'll call 911. You go to the hospital. Wedding gets postponed. You want me to fake a medical emergency at my son's wedding. I want you to save his life. Derek's eyes locked onto mine, filled with raw fear. I've taken jobs I'm not proud of. But when I realized this gig was dirty, that it involved you, your kid, I couldn't just walk away. Across the room, Marcus stood to give a toast. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight, especially my dad, who's been my rock since we lost Mom. Olivia has given me something I didn't think I'd have again: hope. Applause erupted. I clapped mechanically, the pill burning in my fist. Tomorrow, 11:42 a.m., take the pill, Derek whispered. Just trust me, like you did back in '84. That was an exam, Derek. This is my son's life. Exactly. Which is why I'm risking everything to warn you. If I'm wrong, I'll disappear. But if I'm right, you'll thank me for the rest of your life. A woman called from across the room. Lawrence, come, take a photo with Olivia. Derek straightened, shifting back into character. Duty calls, looking forward to tomorrow. He walked away, joining the cluster of family members near the fireplace. They posed for photos, laughing. Seamless, professional, terrifying. My phone buzzed. An unknown number. Room 314, Columbia. You trusted me then. Trust me now? I deleted the message, slipped the pill into my pocket, drained my bourbon. The rehearsal dinner continued, toasts, music, stories. Marcus danced with Olivia, both glowing with happiness. My son so in love, so convinced he'd found his future. Or his nightmare. Yeah, I glanced at the clock. 10:47 p.m. I had less than 12 hours to decide if I was crazy or if my son was about to marry a monster. The morning arrived too fast. I stood in the bathroom at Pinewood Chapel, adjusting my navy tie. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Through the walls, I heard guests filling the pews, the organ's soft prelude, excited chatter of a community gathering to witness love. Or a trap. The red pill sat in my palm. Derek's voice echoed 11:42. 1 hour before the vows. Just trust me. I checked my watch, 11:41. Marcus appeared in the doorway, sharp in his charcoal suit. Dad, you okay? I forced a smile, closing my fist around the pill. Just needed a minute. Big day. I know you miss Mom today. I do too. He stepped closer, hand on my shoulder. But she'd be so happy. Olivia's everything I hoped for. Everything they designed you to hope for. I love you. You know that, right? Of course. Marcus laughed. You're acting like I'm going off to war. It's just a wedding. Just a wedding. Go on, I'll be out in a second. He left. I locked the door and swallowed the pill dry. No turning back now. By noon, Pinewood Chapel was transformed. White roses and eucalyptus lined every pew. Sunlight streamed through stained glass windows. 200 guests filled the seats, and scattered among them, Derek and his fellow actors. I sat in the front row watching Marcus at the altar. The organ swelled into Pachelbel's canon. Olivia appeared stunning in ivory with delicate lace sleeves. She walked down the aisle on Derek's arm. Lawrence Sterling, the proud father, beaming. Then I felt it, a faint itch along my collarbone, warmth spreading across my chest. It's starting. The officiant began, "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today." The itch intensified. My scalp prickled. I tugged at my collar. To join Marcus William Hayes and Olivia Catherine Sterling. My neck felt tight. Red welts bloomed across my knuckles, crawling up my wrists. I stood abruptly, heads turned. "Dad," Marcus's voice concerned. The room tilted, my throat constricted. I tried to speak, but only a wheeze came out. Then my knees buckled. I hit the floor hard. Gasps erupted. Footsteps thundered. Someone call 911. "He's not breathing." Through the haze, I saw Marcus's face above me, pale and terrified. "Dad, stay with me." Derek appeared, phone in hand. "I'm calling an ambulance." But it was Olivia I focused on. She stood 3 feet away, perfectly still in her wedding gown. While everyone panicked, she watched me with an expression I couldn't place. Not fear, not concern. Calculation. Her eyes flicked to Marcus, then to the guests, then back to me. She lifted her phone, stepping toward the side door. I couldn't hear her words, but I saw her lips move, saw the way her face hardened before she slipped outside. Then the world went dark. I woke to beeping. The hospital room was small, sterile beige. An IV fed into my arm. Through the window, the sun was setting. "In Dad," Marcus was at my side instantly. Thank God. You scared the hell out of me. What happened? Severe allergic reaction, anaphylaxis. They think it was something you ate at the rehearsal dinner. Shellfish, maybe. Perfect cover story. The wedding. Ord. Postponed, obviously. Olivia's devastated, but she understands. We'll reschedule once you're cleared. Reschedule. They'd just adapt the timeline. Where is Olivia? Just stepped out for coffee. She's been amazing, Dad. Kept me calm, talked to the doctors. I don't know what I'd do without her. That's the point. To make you dependent. Olivia entered carrying coffee, still wearing her wedding gown, beneath a hospital cardigan. Makeup slightly smudged, eyes red-rimmed. Victor, oh thank goodness. She rushed to the bedside. How are you feeling? Like I got hit by a truck. She laughed softly, but it didn't reach her eyes. You'll need to stay overnight for observation. She pulled out her phone. Do you have any history of allergies? And they asked about your current medications. Something cold slithered down my spine. Why do you need to know? Just trying to help. I used to volunteer at a clinic. Her smile was warm, but her eyes were sharp. And your insurance, do you have the card? You don't have to. I want to. You're going to be my father-in-law. We're family now. Family. Marcus, honey, why don't you grab some real food? There's a deli 2 blocks from here. Marcus hesitated. I don't want to leave. I'll stay with him, I promise. Go. You haven't eaten since breakfast. My son looked at me. I nodded. Go ahead. I'm fine. The moment Marcus left the room changed. Olivia's posture shifted. The worried bride veneer slipped. She stood moving to the window, her back to me. That was quite a scare, she said quietly. For a minute there, I thought we'd have a real problem. I said nothing. She turned, expression unreadable. Marcus told me you don't have a history of allergies. Isn't that interesting? A 62-year-old man suddenly developing anaphylaxis out of nowhere. It happens. It does. Still lucky it happened when it did. Imagine if you'd collapsed during the vows. Much harder to manage. Manage? My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. She knows. Be careful. I deleted it immediately, but Olivia had noticed. That's someone checking on you. Just a friend? Good. You'll need friends in the coming weeks. Recovery from anaphylaxis can be tricky. Fatigue, confusion, memory issues. She picked up her coffee. You'll need to take it easy, Victor. Let the people who care about you help. She walked to the door, pausing. Get some rest. And Victor, I'm so glad you're okay. It would have been such a shame to lose you, especially now when we're so close to becoming a real family. Then she was gone. I lay there in the beeping silence, my mind racing. She knows. She knows I faked it, or suspects. The way she'd asked about medications, insurance, medical history. The way she'd sent Marcus away. The way she'd smiled. She wasn't worried about me. She was worried I'd ruined her timeline. But whatever trap she was building, it wasn't over. It was just beginning. Coming home should have felt like a relief. The hospital discharged me Sunday afternoon with instructions, antihistamine prescriptions, and a warning to avoid shellfish forever. Marcus drove me to 2847 Maple Ridge Drive, in silence, gripping the steering wheel too tight. Dada, I'm so sorry, he said for the 5th time. I should have been more careful with the menu. Marcus, it's not your fault. These things happen. These things were orchestrated. He helped me inside, hovering. The house smelled of wood polish and Catherine's lavender sachets. Then I heard claws on hardwood. Bailey came limping around the corner. My 15-year-old golden retriever, Catherine's gift before cancer, took her moved slower now. Arthritis in his hips, deaf in one ear, but his tail wagged with puppy enthusiasm. Hey, buddy. I knelt, running my hands through his fur. He leaned into me, groaning contentedly. He's been moping since yesterday, Marcus said. Wouldn't eat until I sat with him. Catherine used to say Bailey was the best judge of character. If Bailey doesn't like someone, neither do I. I wondered what Bailey would make of Olivia. Marcus's phone buzzed. Damn! Work emergency. I need to handle it before Monday. He looked torn. Dad, I can stay. Go. I'm fine. Bailey's here. After he left the house, felt too quiet. I settled on the couch, Bailey at my feet. The doorbell rang. Olivia stood on my porch holding a Tupperware container. I made chicken soup, she said, stepping inside before I could object. Marcus said you were home alone. I couldn't leave you without a proper meal. Dressed casually, jeans, cream, sweater, ponytail. The concerned fiancé. That's very kind, but Victor, please. We're going to be family. She moved to the kitchen. Where do you keep your bowls? Second cabinet on the left. She moved through my kitchen like she'd been there 100 times. Bailey watched from the doorway, tail still expression unreadable. Such a sweet dog, Olivia said. How old? 15. That's impressive for a golden. He must be slowing down. Her tone was light, but the way she looked at Bailey made my stomach tighten. She ladled soup, set it before me. I'll get water. Where are your glasses? At cabinet by the sink. She filled a glass. Where's your bathroom? I should wash my hands. Down the hall, first door on the right. She disappeared. 3 minutes passed. 5. I moved quietly down the hallway. The bathroom door was ajar, faucet running. When I peeked through, Olivia wasn't washing her hands. She was opening my medicine cabinet. I watched her examine every bottle, reading labels, checking dosages, taking photos. Aspirin, old blood pressure medication, yesterday's antihistamines. She even rummaged through the drawer beneath the sink. Making sure you have everything you need, she murmured. I barely made it back to the table in time. All set, she said brightly. How are you really feeling? Any dizziness? I'm just tired. That's normal. Anaphylaxis takes a lot out of you. She leaned forward. You'll need to take it easy for a week. I'd like to help out more light cleaning meal prep, just until you're back on your feet. Access to the house. That's not necessary. I insist. Oh, and Marcus mentioned you keep important documents in your home office. I'd be happy to organize them, just in case. Just in case of what? Well, after yesterday's scare, it's smart to have your affairs in order. You never know. The casual way she said it made my blood run cold. My office is private. Of course. She stood moving toward the living room, pausing by the bookshelf. You have a safe, don't you? For important documents, Catherine's things. She's fishing, looking for assets. I should let you rest, she said, moving to the door. Call if you need anything. Oh, and Victor, you might want to replace the batteries in your smoke detectors. I noticed one beeping. She hadn't been upstairs. She's lying, covering for snooping. I waited until she drove away, then locked every door and window. Then I heard her voice from the back porch, faint, muffled. She'd circled around. I pressed myself against the wall, listening. It was stronger than we thought, Olivia was saying, voice stripped of warmth. The hospital didn't slow him down. He's alert, suspicious. I couldn't get into the office. A pause. She was listening to someone. It's fine. Move to plan B. I'll play the concerned daughter-in-law card. Marcus won't question it. Another pause. The dog's old, 15 years. If it becomes a problem, if it starts reacting to me, I'll handle it. One less thing to worry about. My heart stopped. The dog. Timelines push back 2 weeks, maybe 3. But I need you to send the supplies sooner. Supplies? What supplies? Tell Ryan to stay out of sight. The old man's paranoid enough already. Ryan, another accomplice. I watched through the window as she climbed into her BMW, face hard and calculating. The moment she left, I collapsed into a chair. Handle the dog, plan B, supplies, Ryan. Bailey rested his head on my knee. I buried my fingers in his fur. They were coming for me, for my assets, for my family. And if Bailey got in the way, they'd remove him. I called Derek. He answered on the first ring. Victor, you were right, about all of it. She was just here going through my medicine cabinet asking about my safe. And Derek, she mentioned Bailey, said if he becomes a problem, she'll handle it. Long silence. We need evidence. Can you get cameras? Hidden ones? Cameras. If she's planning what I think, we need proof. I'll help you set them up. But Victor, don't let that dog out of your sight. Not for a second. I looked at Bailey, his brown eyes trusting. Catherine's last gift. I won't, I promised. I'll come tomorrow night. We'll figure this out. I sat in the dimming light, Bailey beside me, my house suddenly feeling like a trap. Plan B, handle the dog. Every instinct screamed, this woman was hunting my family, and I was running out of time to stop her. Derek arrived at 8 o'clock Monday night, dressed as a cable repair technician. Navy jumpsuit, tool belt, clipboard. If neighbors were watching, they'd see routine maintenance, nothing suspicious. Marcus had left for a late meeting. The moment his car turned the corner, I texted Derek. Coast is clear. He was at my door in 10 minutes. You look like hell, Derek said, setting down a black duffel bag. I haven't slept since Sunday. She was here yesterday going through everything, asking about my safe medications insurance. I know, that's why we're doing this. Derek pulled out 3 small devices. Wireless micro cameras, battery life 72 hours. They'll feed directly to your laptop. He moved efficiently through my house. Kitchen first camera positioned inside decorative molding. Angle it toward the counter. If she comes back, this'll catch everything. She will come back. Good. Let her. Second camera in the living room wide angle. Third in my office. She asked about your safe right. She'll try to get in eventually. 20 minutes later, Derek showed me how to access the live feed save footage encrypt files. When you see something and you will don't react. Don't confront her. We need evidence that'll hold up. He gripped my shoulder. Can you watch someone hurt the people you love and do nothing? I thought of Marcus, of Bailey, of Catherine's memory. Yes, I said, I can. Derek left through the back door, disappearing into the darkness. Tuesday morning, I woke to a key turning in my front door lock. 7:15 a.m. Marcus had left an hour ago. Olivia. I closed my eyes, pretending to sleep, laptop hidden beneath a pillow. Bailey lifted his head from my feet. Through barely open eyelids, I watched her move through my living room, glancing at me, then toward the kitchen. I reached for my phone, opening the camera app. The kitchen feed loaded. Olivia stood at my counter. She glanced over her shoulder, then pulled something from her purse, a small amber pill bottle. My heart slammed. She shook 3 white pills into her palm, picked up my coffee mug, the world's best dad mug Marcus had given me, and pressed a spoon against the pills, crushing them into powder. Then she stirred the powder into the mug. Oh my God, she's doing it. I wanted to scream, to rush in, but Derek's voice echoed, "Don't react. We need evidence." I forced myself to stay still. Olivia rinsed the spoon, wiped the counter, pocketed the bottle. She filled the mug with fresh coffee and walked to the living room doorway. "Victor, I brought fresh coffee. I thought you might need it." A multisika seeds were verspaald. I stirred, blinking groggily. "Olivia, what are you doing here?" "I was worried about you. Marcus mentioned you didn't sleep well." I followed her to the kitchen. She handed me the mug, Marcus's gift, and watched like a hawk. "Drink up. You need your strength." I lifted it to my lips, then lowered it. "Too hot. Let me brush my teeth first." Her smile tightened. I walked to the bathroom, closed the door, and poured the entire mug down the sink. Ran hot water, scrubbed it with soap. When I returned, Olivia was checking her phone. "You know what, I'm not really hungry. Still feeling off from the hospital." Her eyes flicked to the empty mug. "You didn't drink any—" I rinsed it out. Tasted stale. For a moment, her mask slipped. Frustration flashed across her face, cold, calculating, dangerous. Then she smiled. "No problem. I should get to work." After she left, I pulled up the footage, rewound, watched. Clear, undeniable evidence. I saved the file, encrypted it, copied it to a USB drive. A crash from the kitchen. The Bailey. I ran. Bailey was on the tile's legs, convulsing foam bubbling from his mouth. His eyes rolled back, body jerking in violent spasms. No Bailey, Faristor. Then I saw it. The coffee mug knocked over, brown liquid pooled on the tiles. Bailey must have jumped up, lapped it up. The poison coffee, oh God. I scooped him into my arms and ran for my car. Ashford Animal Hospital was 15 minutes away. I made it in 8. Dr. Mitchell met me at the door. "What happened?" "He got into medication. Pills. I don't know how many. Please help him." 2 hours later, she emerged exhausted. "He's stable, but it's bad. He ingested a high dose of alprazolam, nearly fatal for a dog his size." "Will he be okay?" She hesitated. "He's alive, but there's damage. He's lost vision in his left eye, likely permanent, and his kidneys took a significant hit. He'll need medication for the rest of his life." "Can I see him?" "Give us another hour." I brought Bailey home at 6 o'clock. He was wrapped in a blanket bandage covering his left eye, trembling in my arms. Marcus was waiting on the porch, face white. "Dad, what happened?" "He got into old medication. My fault." "We should call Olivia." "No." The word came out sharp. "Let's not worry her." After Marcus left, I sat beside Bailey's bed, running my fingers through his fur. He opened his remaining eye, brown, trusting, forgiving, and his tail thumped weakly. "I'm sorry, buddy," I whispered. I pulled up the footage again. Olivia crushing the pills, stirring them into my coffee. Smiling. I saved 3 copies, backed them up, sent one to Derek. She'd poisoned my best friend, Catherine's last gift, a 15-year-old dog who'd never hurt anyone. Without hesitation, without remorse. Next time, the dose would be for me. I couldn't stop staring at the footage. Tuesday afternoon, Bailey asleep with his bandaged eye, I sat replaying the video for the 20th time. Olivia crushing the pills, the powder dissolving, her smile. The footage proved she'd tried to harm me, but not why, or who she really was. My phone buzzed. A text from Derek, found someone who can help. Ex-FBI, Thomas Wright. Want his number. I called immediately. Who is he? A former FBI Financial Crimes Unit. 20 years tracking fraud, identity theft, elder exploitation. If anyone can figure out who Olivia really is, it's him. Can I trust him? With your life. An hour later, I sat across from Thomas Wright in a corner booth at a coffee shop, my laptop open between us. Thomas looked exactly like someone who'd spent decades hunting criminals, lean, sharp-eyed, salt and pepper hair cropped close. He wore a navy jacket, reading glasses perched on his head. Mr. Hayes, Derek said you have a situation. I turned the laptop toward him, playing the kitchen footage. Thomas watched in silence. When Olivia crushed the pills and stirred them into the coffee, his jaw tightened. Alprazolam, how much did you drink? None. I poured it out. My dog drank it instead. He almost didn't make it. Thomas's eyes flicked to mine. This woman, Olivia Sterling, she's engaged to your son. 6 months. Wedding was supposed to be last Saturday. I faked an allergic reaction to stop it. Smart. Thomas leaned back. What you've shown me isn't just attempted harm. It's a pattern, a method. I've seen it before. If Olivia Sterling is who I think she might be, your son is in serious danger. Then find out who she is. I'll need 48 hours, full background check, real name, aliases, financials, criminal history. He pulled a contract from his jacket. My retainer is $5,000. I didn't hesitate. I signed and wrote the check. One more thing, Thomas said. Don't let her know you're investigating. If she suspects you're onto her, she'll vanish, and you'll never see her or your son's money again. 48 hours felt like 48 years. Thursday morning, Thomas finally called. We need to meet, in person. What I found? You need to sit down for this. I was at his office in 15 minutes. Thomas Wright's office was small and cluttered. Filing cabinets lined one wall, a corkboard covered in photos, and red string dominated another. He didn't waste time. Sit down, Mr. Hayes. He placed a thick black folder between us. The label read, Kane Rebecca, case file. Her name isn't Olivia Sterling. My stomach dropped. Thomas opened the folder. Inside were photos, surveillance shots, mug shots, driver's licenses under different names. In every one, I recognized her. Her real name is Rebecca Kane, 32 years old, born in Portland, and she's a professional predator. He handed me a sheet. 18 confirmed victims across 7 states over 8 years. $52 million stolen. She targets wealthy individuals, usually widowers, or their adult children, people who are vulnerable, lonely, grieving. I stared at the document. 18, 52 million. She uses fake identities, pediatrician, hospice nurse, whatever fits the target. She builds trust, moves fast engagement within months. She isolates the victim, gains access to finances, and then she medicates them. Then medicates benzodiazepines, small doses at first, enough to cause confusion and memory loss, fatigue. The victim thinks they're just getting old. She plays the concerned partner, suggests they see a doctor, usually one she's paid off. Diagnosis, dementia, anxiety disorder. She gets power of attorney, then she drains everything. My hands were shaking. And the victims, Thomas's face darkened. Most ended up in care facilities, alone, families financially ruined. A few were found deceased, natural causes, heart failure, stroke, but the timing always lined up with asset transfers. By the time anyone suspected foul play, Rebecca was gone. He turned the folder toward me, flipping to photographs. 18 faces, names, dates, locations. Oregon, California, Arizona, Colorado, Texas, Georgia, Virginia, $52 million, 18 lives destroyed, and she's never been caught. I couldn't breathe. She has an accomplice, her brother Ryan Kane, 30 years old, violent criminal record. He's the muscle, and she hires actors like Derek to play family members, makes everything look legitimate. Ah, Jesus Christ! There's more. Thomas pulled out another document, edges worn. Her first known victim, Boston, 2016, Dorothy Wilson, 85 years old, widow. Rebecca posed as a pediatrician, befriended Dorothy's grandson. She gained access to Dorothy's finances and stole $4.2 million. He paused, voice dropping. Dorothy Wilson was my grandmother. The room went silent. She raised me after my parents passed away, gave me everything, put me through college, supported me through Quantico. His jaw tightened. When Rebecca took her money, Dorothy couldn't afford the care facility she'd planned for. She ended up in a state-run home, underfunded, understaffed. By the time I found out she was already gone. Thomas, I'm so sorry. It gets worse. He pulled another photo, a young man smiling. My cousin, Dorothy's other grandson, he'd introduced Rebecca to Dorothy. He blamed himself. Depression, guilt. 2 years later, he took his own life. I felt punched in the chest. I left the FBI in 2018, devoted everything to finding her. I've been chasing Rebecca Kane for 8 years. Thomas looked at me, eyes red-rimmed. Your son fits her profile perfectly. Single late 20s, successful, recently lost a parent. She's been grooming him for months. She's planning to make Marcus victim number 19. He tapped the folder. This woman has destroyed 18 families, taken $52 million, and she's never spent a day in prison. I stared at the corkboard. 18 faces, trusting, smiling, gone. What do we do? I whispered. Thomas stood beside me. We stop her. We gather every piece of evidence we can. We build a case so airtight she'll never see daylight again. And Victor, we make sure Marcus never becomes a photo on this wall. My son was about to become number 19. Not if I could help it. Thomas's words wouldn't leave my head. She'll escalate. When the first dose doesn't work, she'll increase. That's the pattern. You're watching the blueprint unfold in real time. Wednesday evening, I sat in my darkened living room laptop, opened 3 camera feeds glowing. Bailey slept beside me, his bandaged eye a constant reminder. I'd barely slept since meeting Thomas. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those 18 faces. Dorothy Wilson, David Morrison, Margaret Sullivan. Not Marcus, not my son. At 8:30 p.m., headlights swept across my window. I opened the door before she could knock. Olivia. I know I'm sorry to drop by so late. She stepped inside, holding a ceramic travel mug. Marcus asked me to check on you. I made you chamomile tea, my mom's recipe. It always helps me sleep. Your mom, the actor Derek hired, the woman who doesn't exist. That's very thoughtful. I took the mug warm in my hands. You've been through so much. You deserve rest. She glanced around. How's Bailey doing? Is better, slowly. Poor thing. She crouched down to pet him. Bailey's tail didn't wag. He just stared with his one good eye unmoving. Smart dog. I won't keep you. Drink that while it's warm, and Victor. If you need anything, just call. The moment her car pulled away, I set the mug on the counter and bolted upstairs. My phone streamed the kitchen camera feed. 3 minutes passed. Then the back door opened. Olivia stepped inside, moving quickly, quietly. She glanced toward the stairs, then pulled a pill bottle from her jacket. She opened the mug I'd left to cool down, shook 6 white pills into her palm, and pressed them against the granite with a spoon, crushing, grinding. 6 pills, double the dose. She scraped the powder into the tea, stirred, then tasted. Her face twisted, bitter. She found the honey jar, added a generous drizzle, stirred again, nodded. Then she rinsed the spoon, wiped the counter, and slipped out the back door. I sat on my bed, staring at the footage, hands trembling. 6 milligrams, enough to sedate a grown man for hours. I waited 10 minutes, then poured the tea down the sink and scrubbed the mug. I saved the footage and sent it to Thomas. She doubled the dose, 6 pills, chamomile tea, caught on camera. His response came in seconds. Pattern confirmed. She's escalating. Stay sharp. Keep playing your part. Thursday morning, the doorbell rang. Olivia stood on my porch with 2 bags of groceries. Good morning. I was at the store and thought I'd grab a few things for you. Olivia, you didn't have to. I wanted to. She brushed past me, unpacking. How did you sleep, and did the tea help? Like a rock. The lie came easily now. She chatted about the weather, Marcus's work, the rescheduled wedding. Everything normal. Then casually. By the way, did you call the insurance company like we talked about yesterday? I froze. What? The insurance company. Remember, you said you needed to update your beneficiaries. We sat right here and went over it. We never had that conversation. I don't remember that. Her expression shifted. Concern. Pity. Victor, we talked about it for 20 minutes. You even wrote yourself a note. She pointed to my notepad. Blank. You said you'd call this morning. Maybe I forgot. I'm sorry. I've been distracted. Hey, it's okay. She stepped closer, hand on my arm. You've been through a lot. Stress can really affect memory. It's completely normal. Normal. She's making it sound normal. I'll call them today. Good. I'll text Marcus, let him know you're on top of it. Of course she'll tell Marcus. Marcus showed up at noon with sandwiches. In lunch delivery, figured you could use company. We ate in silence. Then Marcus glanced up. Olivia texted. She said you forgot about calling the insurance company, the conversation you two had yesterday. I've been tired. Things are a little fuzzy. Dad, it's not just that. She said you've been forgetting other things too. Conversations, appointments. His voice was gentle. My grandmother, Olivia's grandmother, she had early signs of memory issues around your age. Maybe it's worth getting checked out, just to be safe. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell him she's lying. She's a predator. She's poisoned 18 people, and she's coming for you next. But Thomas's voice echoed, don't break cover. If she knows, she'll vanish. So I said, maybe you're right. Let's wait a bit, see how I feel. Marcus nodded, but I saw at the first flicker of real doubt in his eyes. He didn't believe me anymore. That afternoon, Olivia returned. Did you remember to schedule that follow-up appointment with Dr. Williams? The one the hospital recommended. I stared at her. What appointment? Her face fell. Victor, we talked about this morning, right after I brought the groceries. We never talked about this. I don't remember. For just a second, I saw something flash across her face. Not concern. Satisfaction. It's okay, let me call for you. I'll set it up. You just rest. Marcus was in the living room half listening. I saw his expression shift real worry now. She's winning. That evening, I called Thomas. She's following the pattern exactly. Medication, gaslighting, planting seeds with Marcus. He's starting to believe her. I know, that's what she does. She builds a narrative. By the time the victim realizes what's happening, everyone thinks they're losing their mind. I'm losing my son's trust. You're protecting your son. Thomas's voice was firm. We need more evidence. The fake diagnosis. The forged power of attorney. That's when we have her. I closed my eyes, Bailey's weight against my leg grounding me. She's rewriting my reality, and Marcus is buying it. Then keep playing the part. Pretend to be confused. Let her think it's working. We're close, Victor. Don't break now. I hung up. I pulled up the camera footage again. Olivia crushing the pills, stirring the tea. Her face when she thought no one was watching was cold. Empty. And somewhere across town, my son was worrying about his father's failing mind. She was rewriting my reality, and my son was starting to believe her version. The doorbell woke me at 10 o'clock Friday morning. I had been up most of the night reviewing camera footage and going over Thomas's files, memorizing every detail of Rebecca Kane's pattern. Medicate, gaslight, fake diagnosis, power of attorney. We were on step 3. I opened the door to find Olivia standing beside a man I had never seen before. He was in his early 60s with silver hair neatly combed, wearing a charcoal suit with a crisp white shirt. A leather medical bag hung from his shoulder. He looked every inch the seasoned physician. Olivia's smile was warm, but I saw the steel beneath it. This is Dr. Edmund Price. He's a geriatric psychiatrist. Marcus and I arranged for him to see you. We've been so worried, and Dr. Price was kind enough to make a house call. My stomach dropped. Here it is, the fake diagnosis. Before I could object, Marcus's car pulled into the driveway. He climbed out, his face drawn with concern. He had taken the morning off work for me. Please, Marcus said, walking up the porch steps. Just let Dr. Price talk to you. For me. I looked at my son and wanted to tell him everything. But Thomas's voice echoed in my head. If you break cover, she vanishes. And Marcus will never believe you. Okay, I said quietly, if you think it's necessary. We sat in my living room, and Dr. Price pulled out a small notebook. Let's start simple. Can you tell me today's date? Friday, October 18th. He asked more questions, and I answered everything correctly, clearly, my mind sharp despite the exhaustion. Excellent, Dr. Price said. Your cognitive function appears intact. Now, Mr. Hayes, can you tell me what you had for breakfast this morning? Toast, black coffee. And yesterday? What did you do yesterday? I stayed home. Marcus visited. I think Olivia came by. I glanced at her playing my part. Or was that the day before? Olivia's expression shifted into gentle concern. I visited yesterday morning, Victor. We talked about your medication. You asked me to pick up your prescription refills. We did not talk about that. Right, I said, letting confusion creep into my voice. Sorry, the days are blurring together. Dr. Price made a note. That's understandable. You've been under a great deal of stress. How have you been sleeping? Not well. He asked more questions and then examined my medicine cabinet upstairs. When we returned downstairs, his expression was grave. "Marcus, Olivia, may I speak frankly?" "Please," Marcus said, his voice tight. Dr. Price glanced at me, then back at them. "Your father is showing early signs of cognitive impairment. Not full dementia, not yet, but concerning indicators. Memory gaps, confusion about timeline difficulties, distinguishing recent events. These could be stress-induced and reversible with proper treatment. But we need to be proactive." "What does that mean?" Marcus asked. "Given his age, the recent health crisis, and the indications of self-harm ideation, I'm recommending immediate legal and medical safeguards. If his condition worsens, if he becomes unable to make decisions for himself, you'll need legal authority to act on his behalf." Olivia reached into her purse and pulled out a manila folder. I took the liberty of having documents drawn up, just in case. An emergency will and medical power of attorney. It's standard for situations like this. She spread the documents across the coffee table. I leaned forward, reading my pulse hammering. 70% of estate assets to Marcus William Hayes' son. 30% to Olivia Catherine Sterling, future daughter-in-law, expectant mother of first grandchild. And beneath that, a medical power of attorney, granting Olivia full authority to make medical decisions on my behalf, including authorization for compassionate end-of-life care and refusal of life-sustaining treatment. She's done it. She's bought the legal authority to end my life. "Victor, I know this is overwhelming." Olivia's hand rested on her stomach, flat and empty. "But we're doing this because we love you. Marcus and I and the baby, we just want you safe." Marcus's head snapped toward her. "Baby?" She smiled with tears welling in her eyes. "I was going to wait to tell you both. I wanted it to be a surprise after the wedding. But I'm 8 weeks pregnant, Marcus. We're having a baby." Marcus pulled her into his arms. "Oh my God, we're having a baby." He looked at me, his eyes shining. "Dad, you're going to be a grandfather." I forced a smile, my heart shattering. "She's not pregnant, it's fake. Just like the doctor, just like everything." "That's wonderful," I managed. Marcus picked up the pen. His hand hovered over the signature line. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." He signed, 3 quick strokes. Olivia signed as witness. Dr. Price pulled out a notary stamp and pressed it onto the pages with a satisfying thunk. It was done. While they talked, I slipped my phone from my pocket beneath the table and photographed every page. I sent them to Thomas in a single message. She did it. Emergency will, medical POA, fake pregnancy. Marcus signed everything. His response came instantly. "Document everything. Do not take any medication he prescribes. I'm coming tonight." Dr. Price handed Marcus a prescription slip, a mild sedative, to help him sleep. "Start tonight. 1 pill before bed." After Dr. Price left, Marcus hugged me. "We're going to get through this, Dad. Together, I promise." "I'm going to run to the pharmacy, pick up your prescription. Olivia, can you stay with him?" "Of course." The moment Marcus's car pulled away, Olivia stood by the coffee table gathering the documents. She glanced at me, and the mask slipped. Cold, calculating, victorious. Then she smiled, warm and concerned once more. "You should rest, Victor. Big day." She walked to the door and paused in the threshold. "Take care of yourself. We need you around, for Marcus, for the baby." Then she was gone. I sat there in the silence, staring at the photos on my phone. The will, the power of attorney, the clause that gave Olivia the authority to refuse life-sustaining treatment. She had just bought the legal authority to end my life, and my son had handed her the pen. I hadn't slept. Saturday morning, the sun barely over the horizon, I sat in my darkened living room with my laptop open, 3 camera feeds glowing on the screen. Bailey slept at my feet, his bandaged eye turned toward the wall. Thomas had texted me late Friday night after reviewing the scanned documents from Dr. Price's visit. The notary stamp is fake. The prescription is for alprazolam's same drug she's been using. Don't take it. Keep watching the feeds. She'll slip up. So I watched. Hours of footage. Days of footage. Olivia entering my kitchen, crushing pills, stirring tea. Olivia sitting across from me, planting seeds of doubt. Olivia crying over her fake pregnancy. I scrubbed through Wednesday's footage the day she had doubled the dose. Marcus had come by for lunch. I rewound the feed, watching his car pull into my driveway at 2:30 in the afternoon. Marcus got out, walked to the trunk, pulled out a paper bag. But before heading to the house, he paused, stood by the driver's side door, staring at something in his hand. I zoomed in. The footage was grainy, but I could make out the shape. A small amber bottle. A pill bottle. Marcus stood there for nearly a minute, turning it over in his hands. Then he pulled out his phone, taking a photo. My pulse quickened. He pocketed the bottle, grabbed the lunch bag, and walked to my door. I remembered greeting him. He had smiled, hugged me, acted completely normal. But before that, he had sat in his car. I fast-forwarded the feed to after he left, 4:30 in the afternoon. Marcus walked back to his car, climbed into the driver's seat, and didn't move. For 5 full minutes, he sat there. Then he opened the glove compartment, shoved something inside, and sat with his head in his hands. Marcus found something 3 days ago. Marcus kept a spare key to his car on the hook by my back door. He was at work now. Saturday shift at his firm, some project deadline he couldn't miss. I grabbed the key. His car was parked in my driveway where he had left it last night. I unlocked the door, slid into the driver's seat. I opened the glove compartment, insurance papers, a car manual, a handful of crumpled napkins, and there pushed to the very back corner a small amber pill bottle. I pulled it out, my hands trembling. The label read, Alprazolam, 1 milligram. Quantity 30 tablets. Prescribed to Sarah Mitchell. Filled March 2022. Expires March 2024. Empty. Every pill gone. Sarah Mitchell, not Olivia Sterling, not Rebecca Kane. Another alias, another fake name. Marcus had found this in Olivia's purse 3 days ago. He had taken a photo. He had hidden it in his car. And he had never said a word. I pocketed the bottle, locked the car, and walked back inside, on legs that felt like rubber. I called Thomas the moment I was through the door. I found something, an alprazolam bottle, empty. Prescribed to Sarah Mitchell. Marcus had it hidden in his car. Since Wednesday. A long silence on the other end. He found it and didn't tell you. No, he hid it. I saw him on the camera footage. He took a photo of it, shoved it in his glove compartment, and never mentioned it. Why? I don't know. But I need to see what happened. I'm going back through the footage. I hung up and pulled up Wednesday's feed. Wednesday 9 in the evening. I had been asleep by then, exhausted and unaware, but the cameras had kept recording. Marcus's car pulled into my driveway. Olivia's white BMW was already there. She had come to check on me after I had gone to bed. I fast-forwarded to the audio feed from my front porch camera, muffled voices, then clearer Marcus and Olivia standing just outside my door. Marcus low and tense. Olivia, what is this? Olivia surprised. What? Marcus speaking firmly. I found it in your purse this afternoon when I was looking for my phone charger. A pause. I could hear the rustling of fabric. Olivia with a sharp inhale, then immediately soft and trembling. Oh my God, Marcus, that's so embarrassing. Yet Marcus persistent. It's alprazolam, a prescription. Why do you have this? Olivia with her voice breaking. It's for my anxiety. I've been so stressed with everything. The wedding, your dad's health. I didn't want anyone to know. I thought I could handle it on my own. Marcus softer but still wary. Why didn't you tell me? Olivia crying now. Because I didn't want you to think I was weak. I didn't want to add to your stress. You're already dealing with so much with your dad. I just couldn't burden you with my problems too. Marcus hesitant. Olivia continuing. The prescription is old. I should have thrown it out. I'm not even taking it anymore, I swear. I just forgot it was in my bag. Marcus asking carefully. Why is the name Sarah Mitchell? A beat. Then Olivia quick and smooth. That's my cousin's name. She gave me a few pills last year when I was having panic attacks. I know I shouldn't have taken someone else's prescription, but I was desperate. Marcus, I'm so sorry. Please don't be mad at me. Another long pause. Marcus quieter now. I'm not mad. I just wish you'd told me. We're supposed to be a team. Olivia with her voice thick with tears moving closer. I know. I'm so sorry. I'll be more honest from now on. I promise. I love you so much. I don't want to lose you. Marcus responding gently. You're not going to lose me. I love you too. The audio cut as they entered the house. I sat frozen staring at the laptop screen. Marcus had found the pills. He had confronted her. And she had lied beautifully and flawlessly, wrapping her deception in tears and vulnerability and love. And he had believed her. I hadn't slept. Sunday morning, 6 o'clock, I sat in my darkened living room with my laptop open watching the camera feeds. Bailey slept beside me, his bandaged eye turned toward the wall. The house was silent and empty. Marcus had left last night after our fight, his face drawn with worry and doubt. The fake emergency will sat in my safe, legally binding if I didn't stop her. The pill bottle with Sarah Mitchell printed on the label sat beside it, evidence Marcus had found and buried. I was losing my son one lie at a time. At 6:15 a.m., the kitchen camera flickered to life. Olivia entered through the back door, using Marcus's key, moving quietly and glancing toward the stairs. She walked into the living room, pulled a small makeup bag from her purse, and sat on the floor in front of the hallway mirror. I leaned forward, my pulse quickening. She opened the bag, pulling out compacts and brushes, purple eyeshadow, yellow concealer, red lipstick. Then she began to paint, her left forearm first dabbing purple along the inner skin and blending it with yellow at the edges to mimic an aged bruise. She pressed her thumb into the makeup, creating oval shapes like fingerprints. Then she moved to her right wrist, drawing red lines in a bracelet pattern, like someone had squeezed too hard. A faint smudge on her cheekbone, just enough to be visible, but not dramatic. She tilted her head, checking the bruises in different lighting and adjusting the colors. Then she began to practice. Her face shifted through fear, pain, shock. She let her eyes well with tears, her lower lip trembling. She whispered to her reflection, "He grabbed me. He didn't know what he was doing. He said I was trying to take Marcus away." She paused, shook her head, tried again with different expressions until it was perfect. She stood testing the bruises in the morning sunlight, filtering through the window, nodding to herself. Then she turned, and her eyes landed on the camera, the kitchen camera Derek had installed. Her expression shifted into something cold and calculating. She pulled out her phone, opened an app, and the kitchen feed flickered into static. She walked to the camera, pulled out an aerosol can, and sprayed directly onto the lens. The feed went white, then dark. She smiled to herself, pocketing the spray can and murmuring, "No witnesses." Then she walked out the back door, climbed into her BMW, and drove away. I sat frozen, staring at the dead camera feeds. She'd won. No footage, no evidence, no proof. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Derek saying to check the backup feed. Plan B camera's password, Catherine1996. I opened the browser and typed in the IP address. 3 new camera angles filled my screen, embedded in the smoke detector, hidden in a book spine, and tucked behind Catherine's wedding photo. Micro cameras on a completely different network. They'd captured everything. Olivia, applying the bruises, practicing her expressions, rehearsing her lies, disabling the main cameras. All of it time-stamped, clear, undeniable. I saved the files and sent them to Thomas with a message explaining she'd framed me. Thomas responded immediately, telling me not to reveal the Plan B cameras and to let her think she'd won, so she'd make a bigger move we could catch on tape. At 8:30 a.m., Marcus's car pulled into my driveway. He knocked hard, 3 sharp raps. I opened the door to find him pale, his jaw tight. He pushed past me, asking if I'd seen Olivia this morning. I said no, I'd been alone. He told me she came by around 7 with breakfast and claimed I grabbed her, pushed her, threatened her. My blood went cold. He showed me photos on his phone. The bruises purple and yellow on her forearm, fingerprint-shaped red marks on her wrist, a faint smudge on her cheek. He showed me texts she'd sent to her friend Sarah right after it allegedly happened, time-stamped at 7:15 a.m. I swore I hadn't touched her, hadn't even seen her since Friday. He asked why she would lie, why she would fake bruises. Then he whispered that Dr. Price said I had memory issues and confusion, asking what if I did this and didn't remember. I insisted I wasn't confused, that I knew exactly what I did and didn't do. He looked away, telling me she said I told her she was trying to take him away, that I didn't recognize her, that I had this look like I wasn't myself. I begged him to believe me, that I would never hurt her or anyone. He backed away, shaking his head, saying he didn't know what to believe anymore. I told him to believe me because I'm his father. He replied that she's carrying his grandchild and she's scared, talking about putting me in a facility where I can't hurt myself or anyone else. He said he needed space and left. The door closed with a soft click that echoed like a gunshot. I collapsed onto the couch with Bailey resting his head on my knee. She'd turned my son against me with makeup and lies, and I had no way to tell him the truth, not yet. Not until we had her on tape attempting something undeniable, something even Marcus couldn't explain away. I hadn't slept since Sunday morning, 36 hours, maybe more. Time had blurred into a haze of camera feeds and coffee, and the crushing weight of my son's absence. Marcus hadn't called or texted in 24 hours, the longest we'd ever gone without speaking. Monday night, 8:45 p.m. I sat in my darkened living room with my laptop open, Plan B camera feeds glowing on the screen. Bailey slept beside me, his bandaged eye turned toward the wall. I'd replayed the footage a dozen times, watching Olivia paint bruises onto her skin and practice her scared face. Marcus had believed her. My phone buzzed with a text from Thomas saying she'd escalate fast now that Marcus was pulling away, and she was losing control that the murder attempt was coming, and I needed to watch the feeds and be ready. At 8:47 p.m. headlights swept across my front window. Olivia's white BMW pulled into my driveway. She didn't get out, just sat there with the engine idling. I switched camera angles, but none covered the driveway. Then I remembered the directional microphone Thomas had suggested weeks ago, a small parabolic mic mounted under my front porch eave and aimed at the driveway. I opened the audio interface on my laptop and cranked the volume. Her voice came through cold and businesslike. She was on the phone with Ryan telling him they were moving tomorrow morning. She said I was getting suspicious, and Marcus was pulling away, asking too many questions about the bruises. She needed it finished before he talked to me again. She told Ryan to order the digoxin tonight, that she needed it by 6 a.m. tomorrow. 4 milligrams enough to stop my heart within the hour and make it look like natural cardiac arrest. No one would question it, given my age-recent health scares, stress, and supposed cognitive decline. She continued explaining that the will was signed, Marcus was executor, but she was back up with medical power of attorney. Once I was gone, she'd comfort Marcus, play the grieving daughter-in-law, and settle the estate within 6 months. $18.5 million with 30% going to them. $5.55 million total. She detailed her plan to dose my morning coffee at 7:30 a.m. while I was in the shower. She had a key and would crush the pills and stir them into the programmable coffee pot. I drank 2 cups every morning, so 4 milligrams would be in my system before I finished the first cup. By 9 a.m., I'd be experiencing chest pain, arrhythmia, and shortness of breath. She'd call 911, play the panicked daughter-in-law who found me collapsed. Paramedics would assume heart attack, and I'd be gone before reaching the hospital. Marcus would never know. When Ryan questioned the risk, she insisted there was none, because she'd disabled my cameras yesterday. No evidence, no witnesses, just an old man with a bad heart who finally gave out. Then she said something that made my blood freeze. She'd done this before. She told Ryan to get the digoxin by 6 a.m. at the same drop point they used in Denver, and after this one, they'd disappear. The call ended. Her car backed out and vanished into the night. I sat frozen, staring at the laptop. She'd just ordered my execution for tomorrow morning, 7:30 a.m., in 10.5 hours. My hands moved on autopilot, saving the audio file in 3 copies and sending it to Thomas with the subject line, "Murder Plan." He responded immediately saying he'd call Detective Morrison to set the trap at my house. I'd wear a wire, and when she poured the digoxin, they'd move in. The signal phrase was, "This coffee tastes different today," and that would be the arrest code. He told me not to drink the coffee. I went to my home office and pulled out Catherine's cream-colored stationery with her initials embossed at the top. I began writing to Marcus with shaky handwriting, explaining everything. I told him Olivia's real name was Rebecca Kane, a professional con artist who defrauded and murdered 18 elderly people across 7 states, stealing $52 million. I was supposed to be number 19. I explained the alprazolam she used to harm me, the fake bruises I had video footage of her applying the fake doctor. I told him about Thomas Wright and all the evidence we'd gathered. I explained why I couldn't tell him sooner, that she'd manipulated him so perfectly he wouldn't have believed me. I apologized for having to lie and told him not to let grief stop him from living, that his mother would be proud of him. I folded the letter into an envelope marked, "Marcus open only if I don't survive," and placed it in my safe next to the pill bottle, USB drives, and Thomas's file on Rebecca Kane. Derek called, saying he'd heard from Thomas and would be at my house at 6 a.m., hidden in the guest room as backup. 10 minutes later, Thomas called with the plan. Detective Angela Morrison was coordinating with plainclothes officers in unmarked cars parked 2 blocks away. I'd wear a wire and act normal when Olivia entered, pretending to go upstairs for a shower. She'd dose the coffee while I was gone. When I came back down and poured a cup, I'd say, "This coffee tastes different today," and officers would breach within 30 seconds. Thomas said we'd call Marcus after the arrest and show him everything that he'd understand and forgive me for saving his life. I didn't rest. I sat on the couch with Bailey curled against me, watching the minutes tick by. I set 3 alarms for 6 o'clock, 6:30, and 7 o'clock a.m. The house was silent except for the laptop hum camera feeds capturing empty rooms and dark hallways. Tomorrow, those rooms wouldn't be empty. Tomorrow, Olivia would walk through my door with 4 milligrams of digoxin and a plan to end my life. I whispered into the darkness, with my hand resting on Bailey's warm fur. Tomorrow, buddy, tomorrow we fight back. She'd ordered my execution. I had one night to make sure she was the one who ended up in handcuffs. I wasn't going to sleep. It was 12:30 a.m., 7 hours, until Olivia arrived with 4 milligrams of digoxin and a plan to end my life. I lay on the couch with Bailey curled against my side, his warmth the only thing keeping me grounded. The laptop sat open on the coffee table with Plan B camera feeds running, showing the empty kitchen, dark hallway, and silent house. Then headlights swept across the living room window. A gray pickup truck with Virginia plates pulled into my driveway, not Olivia's white BMW. The driver's door opened and a man stepped out, 30s, with a muscular build and dark hoodie, pulled up carrying a duffel bag slung over his shoulder. He moved with the easy confidence of someone who'd done this before. Ryan Kane. I recognized him from Thomas's file, describing him as 6'1", 200 pounds, with a criminal record for assault, extortion, and intimidation. Rebecca's enforcer and muscle. He walked toward my front door without hurrying or hesitating, moving like he owned the place. I grabbed my phone ready to dial 911, but Ryan didn't knock or ring the bell. He stopped at the door, looked up at the living room window right at me, and crouched down. I heard the soft scrape of paper sliding under the door. Then he stood, made eye contact with the window. One more time, walked back to his truck, and drove away. I waited 30 seconds to make sure he wasn't coming back, then rushed to the front door. A folded piece of heavy cardstock lay on the hardwood floor. I picked it up with trembling hands and unfolded it to find block letters in black ink handwriting, deliberately disguised in all capitals, but with a slight rightward slant and the pressure of someone who wrote quickly and angrily. The message read, "Old man, your time is up. Don't make this harder. If you talk, if you run, if you call anyone, it won't be quick. 7:30 a.m., drink your coffee. R." My hands shook so badly the paper rattled. Ryan wasn't just delivering the digoxin, but delivering a message that they were watching. They were in control, and if I resisted, I'd suffer. I photographed the note from every angle and sent the images to Thomas, explaining Ryan was here at 12:30 a.m. and left a threatening note. Thomas called immediately asking if Ryan tried to enter the house. I said no, just the note, and explained. Ryan looked at the window like he wanted me to know he was here for intimidation purposes. Thomas said that was Ryan's MO, that Rebecca uses him to scare victims into compliance the night before, leaving a threat to make them too terrified to call for help. He told me not to open the door for anyone until the trap was set at 7:30 a.m., and if Ryan came back to call 911 immediately. I asked what if they changed the timeline or came early. Thomas assured me they wouldn't, because Rebecca's entire pattern was built on consistency, and she'd stick to the 7:30 a.m. timeline she mentioned on the phone call. He said Detective Morrison was briefing her team right now that plainclothes officers would be in position at 6 a.m. in 2 unmarked cars 2 blocks away with a 90-second response time. Derek's arrival was pushed up to 6:15 a.m. to enter through my back door and hide in the guest room, upstairs. I'd wear the wire at 7 a.m., and the signal phrase remained, "This coffee tastes different today. With the backup code, I need to sit down." He reminded me that whatever happened, they were 30 seconds away, and I wasn't alone. The hours crawled by through 1 a.m., 3 a.m., and 5 a.m. I didn't sleep or even try, just sat on the couch watching the camera feeds and reviewing the footage one more time. At 6:15 a.m., there was a soft knock on the back door, 3 taps signaling Derek's arrival. I let him in and directed him to the guest room upstairs with a window overlooking the driveway where he'd see her arrive. We hugged briefly, 2 old friends, maybe for the last time, and then he slipped upstairs. At 7 a.m., Detective Morrison texted that officers were in position. At 7:05 a.m., Officer Lisa Grant arrived at my back door in plain clothes to fit my wire. She taped a tiny microphone to my chest beneath my shirt and clipped a transmitter to my belt hidden under a loose sweater. She had me test it, confirmed they could hear me, perfectly reminded me of the signal phrases, and told me I wasn't alone, before disappearing into the pale morning light. I stood in the kitchen alone at 7:25 a.m., 5 minutes remaining. Bailey limped over from his bed and rested his head on my knee. I whispered to him that this was the last time we had to pretend. At 7:28 a.m., a white BMW turned onto my block. My pulse spiked with adrenaline flooding my system, but I forced myself to breathe slowly. Olivia stepped out carrying her purse and a small Tupperware container, probably breakfast-looking, calm, confident, and beautiful, a predator in her element. I moved to the couch, lay down, and pretended to be just waking up, groggy, vulnerable, and unaware. The key turned in the lock. The front door opened. Her brother had just delivered my execution order, but he didn't know I was ready. The house was silent, except for the hum of my laptop and Derek's voice over the speakerphone. It was 2 a.m. 5.5 hours until Olivia arrived. Thomas said we had 5 hours to make sure every piece was locked down, and told me to pull up the master folder. I opened the file directory I'd been building for 10 days, containing 47 video files, 12 audio recordings, and 83 photographs, every piece time-stamped, labeled, and organized. Derek sat across from me at the kitchen table, with his own laptop open cross-referencing timestamps as we went through everything one by one. Files 001 to 006 showed Bailey's poisoning on day 4 at 7:15 a.m. Plan B camera footage from the kitchen angle, capturing Olivia entering through the back door, thinking I was asleep, pulling the amber pill bottle from her purse containing alprazolam, crushing 3 pills with the back of a spoon, and stirring the powder into my coffee mug. Later footage showed Bailey jumping up, lapping the poison coffee, collapsing and convulsing. The vet report from Dr. Sarah Mitchell at Ashford Animal Hospital was attached, diagnosing alprazolam poisoning with permanent vision loss in his left eye and kidney impairment. Thomas said that was attempted harm plus animal cruelty with felony charges. Files 007 to 010 showed dose escalation on day 5 at 8:30 p.m., with Plan B footage from the living room angle, capturing Olivia entering with chamomile tea, leaving returning after I'd gone upstairs, crushing 6 pills into the tea I'd left on the counter to cool and adding honey to mask the bitterness. Later footage showed me pouring the tea down the sink after she left. Thomas said escalation proved intent, that she wasn't trying to confuse me, but to incapacitate me. Files 011 to 022 showed the fake doctor visit on day 7 at 10 a.m., with multiple angles capturing Dr. Edmund Price, arriving with Olivia. The cognitive assessment, the fake diagnosis of early-stage cognitive impairment, with self-harm ideation, the emergency will, the medical power of attorney, and Marcus signing. I had to look away from that one. Thomas said this was fraud, forgery, and elder exploitation, confirming that Dr. Edmund Price doesn't exist, and the medical license number on his card was fake, along with the notary stamp. Files 023 to 027 showed the staged abuse on day 9 at 6:15. AM footage I'd watched 100 times, showing Olivia sitting in front of my hallway mirror, applying purple and yellow makeup to her forearm, in fingerprint patterns with red marks on her wrist and a faint bruise on her cheekbone, practicing her scared face and rehearsing her lines about me grabbing her, then disabling the main cameras with a jammer app and opaque spray, thinking she'd eliminated all evidence before leaving through the back door. Thomas said false accusation of abuse, witness intimidation, and obstruction could put her away for years alone. File 028 was the murder plan call from day 10 at 8:47 p.m., the audio that changed everything, captured by the porch directional mic, with Olivia's voice cold and businesslike, ordering the digoxin at 4 milligrams to stop my heart within the hour, making it look like natural cardiac arrest, since the will was signed for $18.5 million, saying she'd done this before. 4 minutes and 22 seconds, every word clear, time stamped, and undeniable. Thomas said conspiracy to commit murder for hire with federal charges meant life sentence with no parole. Files 029 to 036 showed Ryan's threatening note from day 11 at 12:30 a.m., with 8 angles and close-ups of the handwriting signature and timestamp visible in my phone screen corner. Thomas said witness intimidation, conspiracy, and accessory to attempted murder meant Ryan was going down with her. By 4 a.m., we'd compiled everything into a master evidence file, with Thomas building a 200-page briefing packet for Detective Morrison, containing victim profiles, financial forensics, Rebecca Kane's criminal history, and annotated transcripts. He said he'd have it to her by 6 a.m., and she'd present it to the district attorney the moment Rebecca was in custody, that this was bulletproof and no jury would acquit. I couldn't rest. There was one more thing I had to do. I sat at my desk and pulled out Catherine's stationery, the same cream paper with her initials embossed at the top. This letter was different for when Marcus woke up and learned the truth. I wrote explaining everything, apologizing for having to wait and lie, telling him this wasn't his fault, because he loved her with his mother's open, trusting, generous heart, and shouldn't let this woman steal that from him. I told him Catherine would want him to heal and find real love someday, that I loved him always. And when he was ready, Thomas would show him everything so he'd understand why I had to wait. I asked him to forgive me for lying and to forgive himself for loving her, adding a postscript to take care of Bailey. I folded the letter, sealed it in an envelope marked Marcus read after arrest, and placed it in the safe beside the other evidence. At 7:15 a.m., I saw a white BMW turning onto my street through the kitchen window. My heart slammed against my ribs, but I forced myself to breathe slowly. I moved to the couch, lay down, and closed my eyes, pretending to sleep. I heard the car pull into the driveway, the engine cut the door open, footsteps on the porch, and a key slide into the lock. The front door creaked open, and Olivia's voice came soft and fake concerned, asking if I was awake. I didn't move. Footsteps entered the living room, paused, then walked into the kitchen. I heard her set something down the Tupperware she'd been carrying and her purse opening. The trap was set. In 15 minutes, I'd either save my son or lose everything. The front door opened, and Olivia's voice echoed through the house, bright and cheerful, the perfect mask. She said she brought fresh coffee and knew how much I loved my morning routine. I lay on the couch with Bailey curled against my side, eyes closed, not moving or reacting, just listening to her footsteps crossing the hardwood floor. I opened my eyes, slowly blinking like I'd just woken up, and asked what time it was. She stood in the living room doorway, holding a stainless steel thermos, wearing jeans and a soft gray sweater, with her hair pulled back in a ponytail, looking like someone stopping by to check on a sick neighbor, not someone about to commit murder. She said it was 7:30 and walked into the kitchen. I pushed myself up from the couch, slow and stiff, playing the part of an old man who'd barely slept. In the kitchen, Olivia unscrewed the thermos cap and poured steaming coffee into my world's best dad mug, the same one she'd used to poison Bailey. I watched her hand tremble slightly as she stirred the coffee with a spoon, unnecessary checking to make sure the digoxin had fully dissolved. She turned, holding the mug out to me, with her smile never wavering, telling me to drink up because I needed my strength. I took the mug, lifted it to my nose, and smelled coffee with strong, dark roast, but underneath something faint, bitter, and medicinal. Digoxin 4 milligrams, enough to stop my heart within the hour. I raised the mug to my lips, and Olivia leaned forward with her eyes locked on mine, anticipating. Then I lowered it, frowning, and said, "The coffee tasted different today." Olivia's face froze, and I explained it tasted off and bitter, asking if she used a different blend. 2 blocks away in unmarked sedans, officers were hearing my words through the wire, with engines starting and hands reaching for door handles. Olivia's voice dropped with all warmth draining away, telling me to drink the coffee. I said I didn't want it because it tasted wrong. She stepped closer with hard eyes, no more pretense or mask, demanding I drink the coffee. I set the mug down on the counter and said no. The sound of tires on gravel broke the silence, an engine roaring, a car pulling up fast. Ryan's gray pickup truck skidded into my driveway. Olivia pulled out her phone, asking why I wasn't drinking and telling him to get in here now. The front door banged open and Ryan Kane strode in, 6'1" and 200 pounds of muscle and menace, in a dark hoodie with a duffel bag slung over his shoulder. He walked straight into my kitchen like he owned it. I demanded to know what he was doing in my house while backing toward the sink. Ryan ignored me, looked at Olivia, and she pointed at the coffee mug, saying, "I wouldn't drink it because it tasted wrong." Ryan's jaw tightened and he turned to me, his voice flat and cold, saying I had 2 choices to drink that coffee right now, or he'd make this a lot harder. He unzipped the duffel bag and pulled out a large syringe filled with clear liquid. I said he wasn't doing this and told him to get out of my house. Ryan advanced with the syringe raised, saying I didn't have a choice, while Olivia behind him told him to just dose me because they were out of time. I said loudly that they were here to harm me, that they brought digoxin at 4 milligrams to stop my heart, that I heard the phone call about making it look like natural cardiac arrest, and that I had it all on tape. Olivia's face went white. Ryan stopped with the syringe halfway to my arm, asking what I was talking about. I pulled my phone from my pocket, showing the Plan B camera app with live feeds from 3 hidden cameras, and a red recording dot blinking in the corner, telling them to smile for the camera. Olivia lunged for the phone, and I dodged, stumbling backward into the living room while keeping the phone high with the camera facing them. Ryan's voice rose, panicked, asking if I was recording and how since she disabled the cameras. Olivia spun toward him, saying she disabled the visible cameras and there must be backups. I explained about the Plan B cameras being hidden and catching everything: the mirror rehearsal, the fake bruises, her crushing pills into my coffee, and her phone call to Ryan. Olivia's eyes darted to the smoke detector bookshelf and picture frame on the wall, realizing and understanding. She hissed at Ryan that they needed to leave now, but he said not until I was dealt with. Tires screeched outside with multiple vehicles and car doors slamming. A bullhorn amplified the command for police, telling them to come out with their hands up. Olivia spun toward the window, her face a mask of shock and fury. Ryan turned on her with the syringe still in his hand, saying she told him there was no risk and this was clean. I kept the phone raised, recording everything, telling Rebecca it was over. She turned to me, with her face twisted in rage, all pretense gone, saying I should have drunk the coffee. Ryan raised the syringe again, stepping toward me. I said clearly and loudly that I needed to sit down the backup signal. Fists hammered on the front door, with police demanding it be opened now. Ryan lunged and I sidestepped while he stumbled with the syringe flailing. Olivia grabbed for my phone, her nails scraping my hand. The front door exploded inward, with wood splintering and hinges tearing from the frame. 4 officers flooded into the living room, with guns drawn and voices overlapping, commanding hands up, drop the weapon, and on the ground now. Ryan froze with the syringe still raised above his head, while Olivia's hand was on my phone, trying to rip it away. I stood between them and the police, with the phone camera still recording, capturing every second. The needle, the phone, then crash. The front door exploded inward as a steel battering ram punched through the deadbolt like cardboard, slamming the door against the wall with a sound like a gunshot. 4 uniformed officers in tactical vests poured into my living room with rifles raised, voices overlapping in a single roar, commanding hands up and drop the weapon. Ryan froze with his hand hovering in midair, the syringe still clutched in his fist, with 10 milliliters of clear liquid glinting in the morning light. Then the needle clattered onto my hardwood floor, and Ryan bolted toward the back door. He made it 3 steps before 2 officers tackled him from behind, driving him face first into my coffee table. The table cracked, and Ryan grunted as one officer wrenched his arms behind his back and snapped steel handcuffs around his wrists, barking that Ryan Kane was under arrest. Across the room, Olivia lunged for my phone, with fingers clawing at the screen, but Detective Angela Morrison was faster. Morrison caught Rebecca's wrist, mid-swipe, twisted and slammed her against the wall, commanding hands behind her back now. Rebecca's mask finally shattered, and the warm, caring, pregnant fiancé vanished, replaced by something cold and sharp. She jerked her chin toward me, with eyes blazing, shrieking that she was pregnant and they were hurting the baby. Morrison didn't even blink, locked the cuffs tight, turned Rebecca around and said she wasn't pregnant, and to save it for her lawyer. Rebecca screamed raw and guttural, the sound of a cornered animal, claiming her name was Olivia Sterling, and she didn't know any Rebecca Kane. The scream died mid-sentence when a woman in a navy windbreaker stepped through the broken doorway, holding up a black leather badge wallet. Special Agent Sarah Brennan from the FBI Financial Crimes Unit said in a flat, professional, lethal voice that Rebecca Marie Kane and Ryan Thomas Kane were under arrest for wire fraud, conspiracy to commit murder, elder exploitation, and identity theft across 7 states. She pulled a folded paper from her jacket, showing a federal warrant signed that morning by Judge Whitman. She moved to Rebecca first, reading Miranda rights from a laminated card, asking if she understood these rights. Rebecca spat on the floor. Agent Brennan didn't flinch. Turned to Ryan, repeated the warning word for word, and waited. Ryan said nothing. I stood in the middle of my living room, with legs shaking and heart hammering against my ribs. My world's best dad mug still sat on the kitchen counter, half full of poison coffee. I pointed at it with a trembling hand, my voice hoarse, explaining she put 4 milligrams of digoxin in my coffee and told her brother last night to stop my heart. A young officer in blue gloves stepped forward, photographed the mug from 3 angles, then carefully poured the contents into a sealed evidence jar. Another officer crouched beside the shattered syringe, used tweezers to lift it into a plastic evidence bag and held it up to the light, saying into a handheld recorder it was 10 milliliters of clear liquid, suspected digoxin, with tag number E2471. Behind me, I heard footsteps on the stairs, and Derek Morrison emerged from the guest room. He'd shed the wig beard and suit jacket, looking older, without the disguise, tired, relieved, and something close to proud. He walked straight to Detective Morrison and extended his hand, introducing himself as an undercover witness with full footage from hidden cameras. Agent Brennan nodded, saying Thomas Wright briefed them, and they'd need his statement at the field office, but he did good work. Then I heard tires screech outside, a car door slam, and footsteps pound up my front walk. Marcus burst through the open doorway with wild eyes and froze, taking in the scene in one terrible sweep. The shattered door, the officers, the two people in handcuffs, the evidence bags, the FBI jackets, and me, standing in the center of it, all pale and shaking and alive. He whispered, asking what was happening. I told him she tried to kill me. Her real name was Rebecca Kane, and she'd done this 18 times before. Marcus shook his head hard, like he could shake the words out of his ears, saying no, that she was pregnant and they were getting married. Rebecca's voice came soft and sweet and desperate as she twisted in Morrison's grip, trying to face him, calling him baby, and saying this was a mistake and she loved him. Agent Brennan stepped between them, telling Marcus firmly but not unkindly that they had video evidence, audio recordings, and 18 prior victims, that his father would explain everything and to let them do their job. Marcus looked at me, and I nodded. He sank onto the arm of my couch with hands gripping his knees. Brennan pulled an iPad from her bag, tapped the screen twice, handed it to Marcus, and told him to listen. The audio was crystal clear, with Rebecca's voice calm and cold, saying 4 milligrams in his coffee tomorrow morning, enough to stop his heart, make it look natural, the will's already signed. Then Ryan asking, "What if the old man doesn't drink it?" And Rebecca responding, "Then you use the syringe. I've done this before, it works." 45 seconds, that's all it took. Marcus's face went gray. He set the iPad down on the couch like it was made of glass, then stood, walked 3 steps toward the kitchen, and collapsed onto a dining chair with his hands covering his face. I sat down beside him, didn't say anything, just put one hand on his shoulder. Outside, 2 officers were loading Rebecca and Ryan into separate black SUVs. Rebecca turned back one last time, met my eyes through the open door, and smiled a thin, cold, lethal smile, saying, "I should have drunk the coffee." I held her gaze and said she should have picked a different family. The door slammed, the engine started, and the convoy rolled away. My son had just watched the woman he loved order my execution. I'd saved his life, but I didn't know if I could save his heart. You've stuck around this long, thank you. Now tell me, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you trust people when you first meet them? Drop your number below. Before we move forward, a gentle reminder. What follows contains some fictionalized moments crafted for storytelling. If you'd rather not continue, this is your exit point. Still here? Let's see what Victor does next. The forensic team packed the last evidence bag at 8:30 Tuesday morning. The front door had been rehung by 10, and by noon, the house was silent again, except for the sound of Marcus breathing on the living room couch. He hadn't moved in 4 hours. I made him a turkey sandwich with mustard and pickles he'd loved since he was 7, and set the plate on the coffee table, telling him he needed to eat. He shook his head once slowly, like even that small motion cost him something, then stood, walked 3 steps to the far end of the couch, lay down facing the wall, and went still. Day 12? Wednesday, I woke at 7 on the hallway floor outside the living room, with my neck aching and spine feeling like a rusted hinge. Bailey was curled beside me, with his graying muzzle resting on my thigh. Inside the living room, Marcus still lay on the couch, but the sandwich plate was gone, with only a few crumbs remaining on the coffee table. Relief flooded through me so fast I almost laughed. At 10 o'clock, a contractor arrived to replace the front door frame. The battering ram had splintered and the hammering echoed through the house. Marcus flinched with every strike, pulled a couch pillow over his head, and didn't move again until the contractor left at 11:30. At 3, Derek showed up with a bag from Marcus's favorite deli pastrami on rye with extra pickles, the way Marcus ordered it every Friday. Derek walked into the living room, sat down in the armchair across from the couch, and said he knew Marcus didn't want to talk, but needed to hear this. Marcus didn't turn, but Derek kept going, explaining that his dad faced a woman who'd taken $52 million from 18 people, A woman who'd hired actors, forged documents, and faked pregnancies. And he did it to protect him without hesitation, because that's love. A tear slid down Marcus's cheek, and he didn't wipe it away. Derek left at 6, and I brought the deli bag into the living room, unwrapped the sandwich, and set it beside Marcus. This time he sat up slowly, picked up half the sandwich, took one bite, and chewed like it hurt. I picked up the other half and sat beside him. We ate in silence. That night I sat on the hallway floor again and told him about the time Catherine and I had our worst fight over whether to move to Richmond for my job, that she said she wasn't asking me to be perfect but to be honest, and that's all I asked from him, to be honest about what he was feeling. At 11, Marcus spoke for the first time in 48 hours, saying he was so tired. I stood, walked into the living room, sat beside him, and said, I knew, and that I was too. Day 13, Thursday. Marcus got up at 8, walked into the kitchen, and poured himself a glass of orange juice. I was making coffee, and he looked at the coffee maker, the same one Rebecca had used to dose my drink, and his hand started shaking. I poured the coffee down the sink, unplugged the machine, put it in a garbage bag, and told him we'd get a new one because this one was done. Marcus nodded. At 4, Marcus asked if he could see the videos. I hesitated, but he said he needed to see and know. I brought him my laptop, opened the evidence folder, and let him choose. He watched the footage of Rebecca rehearsing fake bruises in the mirror, crushing alprazolam into my coffee, and telling Ryan to stop my heart with 4 milligrams of digoxin. Each clip lasted 1 to 2 minutes, and he watched them 6 times. At 7, he said she kissed him goodbye that morning, said she loved him, then came here to kill me. I said she's a predator who's done this 18 times, and he couldn't have known. Day 14, Friday. Marcus showered for the first time in 4 days and came into the kitchen wearing clean clothes. I made a full breakfast with eggs, toast, and bacon, and he ate it all. At 5, he asked if I ever thought about just letting her win, taking the poison, and ending it. I turned and looked him straight in the eye, saying every single day I thought about giving up. Then I'd think about him and knew I had to fight. Day 15, Saturday at 10. Marcus came out of the living room and sat beside me on the main couch. We watched a college football game on TV, without talking, just sitting. At 1, he asked how he could not see the lies, the fake pregnancy. The poison, asking how he could be so stupid. I turned, put both hands on his shoulders, looked him in the eye, and said, he was not stupid, not weak, not guilty. He shook his head with tears spilling over. I explained she fooled 18 people before him, including millionaires, CEOs, a retired judge, and a Harvard professor with fake IDs, fake medical records, hired actors, and a full criminal network, that she was a professional and that he loved her, which wasn't a crime, but being human. Marcus broke and sobbed into my shoulder with his whole body shaking. I held him, while Bailey lay at our feet with his head resting on Marcus's shoe. We stayed like that for 5 minutes, with no words, just breathing and the ticking of the hall clock. At 1:30, Marcus pulled back, wiped his eyes, and said quietly, he didn't know how to fix this. I told him he didn't have to fix it alone, and to let me help him. We'd survived her plan, but the real battle rebuilding trust was just beginning. Thomas Wright didn't sleep the night of November 10th. He sat in his cramped Ashford Springs office until 3 in the morning, scrolling through spreadsheets, bank transfers, forged power of attorney documents, and toxicology reports. 18 victims, 7 states, $52 million stolen, and one name at the center of it all, Rebecca Marie Kane. He sent the final report of 347 pages to Assistant U.S. Attorney Linda Hayes at 11:47 p.m. with the subject line, Kane Case, Complete Victim File, Priority. Linda replied at 6:14 a.m. Monday, saying meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. and to bring everything. Week 1, Building the Case. The conference room at the U.S. Attorney's Office in Alexandria, Virginia, smelled like burnt coffee and old carpet. Linda Hayes stood at the head of the table, a slim woman in her late 40s with steel gray hair pulled into a tight bun, who'd prosecuted elder fraud cases for 15 years and knew predators when she saw them. Across from her sat FBI agent Sarah Brennan, Detective Angela Morrison from Ashford Springs, PD Thomas Wright, and FBI forensic accountant Michael Tran. Linda tapped a thick folder on the table, saying this was the largest elder fraud case in Virginia history. with 18 victims, $52 million, 7 states, and 9 aliases. She opened the folder, revealing a grid of photos showing 18 faces, 18 names, and 18 amounts stolen. Rebecca and Ryan Cain were facing wire fraud conspiracy to commit murder, elder abuse, identity theft, and forgery, and if convicted on all counts. Rebecca faced life in federal prison, while Ryan faced 40 to 50 years. On Tuesday, the forensic lab at Quantico sent its report showing Victor's coffee contained 4.2 milligrams of digoxin, a lethal dose for an adult with normal cardiac function, while the syringe Ryan had carried held 8 milligrams, double the lethal threshold dissolved in 10 milliliters of sterile water. But the most damning evidence came from Ryan's duffel bag, containing 9 small pill bottles with 90 digoxin tablets, total 3 sterile syringes, a bottle of distilled water, latex gloves, and a spiral notebook. The notebook listed 10 names, 10 addresses, and 10 doses, with Victor Hayes as number 7. Linda Hayes read the report twice, then called Thomas saying they had enough to put them both away for life. On Wednesday, Agent Brennan interviewed Victor at the FBI field office in Richmond for 2.5 hours. Victor recounted everything from the rehearsal dinner, warning to the final confrontation, handing over 47 video files, 12 audio recordings, 83 photos, the forged emergency will and medical power of attorney, and a fake business card for Dr. Edmund Price. Brennan looked up from her notes, saying Victor had built the strongest witness case she'd seen in 10 years. Victor's voice was hoarse as he said he just wanted to make sure she couldn't do this to anyone else. Week 2, reaching the families. Thomas Wright spent 4 days on the phone and 2 days on planes flying to Boston, Denver, Atlanta, and San Diego. He sat in living rooms with grieving sons, angry daughters, and exhausted siblings, showing them the evidence of wire transfers, forged documents, and photos of Rebecca in 9 different disguises. He asked them to testify. 12 families said yes, while 6 said no, too painful, too private, too afraid. On Wednesday night, Thomas called Linda Hayes saying they had 12 families, and that was more than enough. On Thursday, Rebecca Cain sat across from her court-appointed attorney, Jonathan Mercer, in a cramped interview room at FCI Petersburg. Mercer was 55, gray-haired, overworked, and blunt, explaining they had video of her crushing pills into coffee audio, of her ordering Ryan to poison Victor Hayes with digoxin, 18 prior victims, $52 million in wire transfers, forged documents, and a notebook with 10 names. Rebecca leaned forward, saying Ryan forced her and threatened her life, that she was a victim too. Mercer shook his head, saying that wouldn't work, because the prosecution had footage of her, alone rehearsing fake bruises, disabling cameras, and calling Ryan with instructions that she wasn't a victim, but the mastermind. Rebecca stood and said she wasn't pleading guilty, and they were going to trial. On Saturday, Linda Hayes and Sarah Brennan finalized the indictment with 51 counts total, including 18 counts of wire, fraud, 1 count of conspiracy to commit murder, 1 count of attempted murder, 18 counts of elder abuse, 9 counts of identity theft, 4 counts of forgery, and 1 count of animal cruelty under Virginia state law. Maximum combined sentence was life plus 400 years for Rebecca and 40 to 50 years for Ryan. At 6 that evening, Linda called Victor saying the grand jury would convene. Monday indictment would be issued by Wednesday. Preliminary hearing was set for February 12, 2025, and trial would likely begin in late February. On Sunday, Thomas Wright called Victor one last time, saying Dorothy Wilson's case had been reopened, that Boston PD found digoxin in her 2016 toxicology report. They'd missed the first time, and Rebecca's fingerprints were on file now, so they could finally get justice for his grandmother. Victor sat at his kitchen table with Marcus beside him and Bailey at their feet, saying quietly that 18 families and $52 million stolen left one question haunting him about how many others never got justice. After a long silence, Thomas said they may never know, but they were stopping her now, and that's what mattered. 18 families, 52 million stolen, and one question haunted me about how many others never got justice. 4 months is a long time to wait for justice. Marcus spent November and December in Dr. Elena Martinez's office every Wednesday at 2 o'clock, talking about betrayal, recognizing manipulation, grounding techniques, and mindfulness. He learned to name his feelings instead of drowning in them, and to say, I was a victim, without hearing, I was a fool. I spent those months trying to rebuild something close to normal, replacing the front door again, repainting the living room, a soft gray Catherine would have loved cooking dinner with Marcus 3 nights a week, and taking Bailey on slow walks around the block, with his blind left eye turned toward me and his tail still wagging. The media found us in late November, with headlines screaming, "The perfect son-in-law killer," and "Elder fraud ring." Exposed 18 victims, $52 million stolen. Reporters knocked on my door, but I didn't answer, and Marcus unplugged his phone. Thomas and I spent hours at Linda Hayes' office preparing for the preliminary hearing in February, reviewing every video, every audio file, every timeline. Rebecca Kane stayed silent, with no letters, no phone calls, nothing until January. On January 7th, Jonathan Mercer called Linda Hayes, saying his client wished to apologize to Victor Hayes and his son Marcus in person, believing it would help her healing process and demonstrate genuine remorse to the court. Linda called me 20 minutes later, saying this was a manipulation tactic that Rebecca wanted to see if I'd crack, or was trying to create evidence of remorse for the judge, and she strongly advised against it. I sat at my kitchen table with Marcus across from me, listening, and said, I wanted to go, that I wanted to look her in the eye and wanted Marcus to see who she really is. Linda leaned forward at our meeting, saying Rebecca would cry, apologize, claim she was desperate, abused, forced by Ryan, tell Marcus she truly loved him, and ask for forgiveness. She looked at me, saying not to engage emotionally, not to argue, to state my piece, then leave, because the longer I stayed, the more control she had. Marcus's voice was quiet, asking why she wanted to see us. Linda explained 2 reasons, one being she wanted to destabilize us before trial, to make us doubt emotional and unreliable on the stand, and 2 being, she hoped we'd say something she could use in court, like, I forgive you, to show the judge she's remorseful. I looked at Marcus, saying, she won't get either. January 22nd, 2025 at 10 a.m., the drive to FCI Petersburg took 40 minutes through gray January sleet. The prison was a low concrete sprawl surrounded by chain-link fencing, and we passed through 3 security checkpoints before being led to a small visitation room. The room was 10 feet by 10 feet, with cream-colored walls, a metal table bolted to the floor, 2 chairs facing each other, and between them, a 2-inch thick glass partition with wall-mounted phones on either side. I sat down and heard the door open on the other side of the glass. Rebecca walked in, and I barely recognized her. She'd lost maybe 12 pounds with her prison khakis hanging loose on her frame, her hair grown longer and darker with natural brown instead of the honey blonde she'd worn as Olivia. She wore light makeup, but her face looked drawn and tired, with shoulders slumped and hands twisted together, every movement calculated to project fragility. She sat, picked up the phone, and her eyes were red-rimmed when she looked up at me, her voice trembling as she thanked me for coming. I picked up the phone, with my voice flat, saying I was here because the prosecutor advised me to see this manipulation in person. She flinched with tears spilling over, saying she knew I hated her, and she deserved that, but needed me to know she was so sorry, that she was desperate and drowning in debt, that Ryan threatened her. I said nothing. She claimed she never wanted to hurt me or Marcus, that she loved Marcus, and still did that. It wasn't fake. I leaned forward with my voice ice, saying she rehearsed fake bruises in the mirror, crushed alprazolam into my coffee, poisoned my dog, who's blind in one eye because of her, called her brother, to bring digoxin to stop my heart, and wrote a notebook with 10 names and 10 doses. I paused, saying she didn't love Marcus, but loved his access to me and my money. She shook her head violently, sobbing, begging me to tell Marcus she was sorry and never meant to hurt him. I stood, saying, I'm not her messenger, and if she wanted to apologize to my son, she could do it in court under oath, where the 18 families she destroyed could hear it. I hung up the phone and turned to leave. Rebecca slammed her hand against the glass, screaming she was pregnant and carrying Marcus's baby. I stopped and turned back. Linda spoke into her phone, saying Ms. Kane underwent a medical exam upon admission to FCI Petersburg, showing no pregnancy, and that lying to a victim during a supervised visit was a violation of her visitation privileges. Rebecca's face changed with the mask, shattering grief, vanishing, and fury taking its place. She stared at me through the glass, with eyes cold and hard, calling me a self-righteous old fool, and saying she'd walk out of this trial because juries love a sob story, and when she did, she'd come for me again. I smiled, not a kind smile, and said, "See you in court, Rebecca." In the car, Marcus sat motionless with the iPad dark on his lap. He said quietly, "She didn't mean any of it. Not the apology, not the tears, not the 'I loved you,' that it was all a script." I put my hand on his shoulder, saying yes. Son, it was. Marcus took a deep breath and said he was ready to testify. She'd tried one last con, and this time we didn't fall for it. The courtroom was full with every seat on the spectator benches taken. I recognized faces from the victim files Thomas had compiled. Dorothy Wilson's grandson, gray-haired and hollow-eyed David Morrison's daughter, clutching her husband's hand, Margaret Sullivan's son, with jaw tight, and behind them, reporters with notebooks and pens flying. Marcus sat beside me, with Thomas on my other side. At 9 o'clock, Judge Margaret Whitmore entered, struck her gavel once, and announced the court was now in session for the United States versus Rebecca Marie Kane and Ryan Thomas Kane. I sat with my eyes going to the defense table where Rebecca sat between her attorney, Jonathan Mercer, and Ryan wearing a khaki prison uniform, with hair pulled back, no makeup, and face blank. Ryan wore a white dress shirt and black pants provided by his lawyer and stared at the table. Neither looked at me. Day 1 morning. Linda Hayes stood before the jury of 12 people, 6 men and 6 women, ages 30 to 70. She began saying over the next 2 days they would hear about a conspiracy so calculated and so cruel that it may seem impossible to believe, but every word would be backed by evidence including video-audio forensic toxicology and the testimony of the man who nearly died at the hands of these 2 defendants. She clicked a remote showing a timeline on the wall screen from October 11th rehearsal dinner, warning through October 22nd, FBI raid and arrests. Linda pointed to Rebecca saying, "Rebecca and Ryan Kane are not victims, but predators, and the evidence will prove it beyond a reasonable doubt." At 10:05, Linda called my name, and I walked to the witness stand, raised my right hand, swore to tell the truth, and sat. Linda walked me through the timeline, and I told them about Derek's warning at the rehearsal dinner, the fake allergic reaction, Olivia's phone call, Bailey collapsing, Thomas's investigation, the hidden cameras, the poisoned coffee, the gaslighting, the forged will. Marcus finding the pill bottle, the stage bruises, and finally the recording. Linda played it for the jury, with Rebecca's voice filling the courtroom, saying 4 milligrams in his coffee tomorrow morning, enough to stop his heart, make it look natural. The will's already signed. Then Ryan's voice asking, "What if the old man doesn't drink it?" And Rebecca responding, "Then you use the syringe. I've done this before it works." Silence fell as not one person in that courtroom moved. Linda stopped the recording and asked, when I heard those words, "Stop his heart," what did I feel? I looked at the jury saying I felt like I was already dead. Then I thought of my son and decided to fight. Day 1. Afternoon. Jonathan Mercer Cross examined me for 45 minutes, trying to poke holes, asking if I never actually drank the poisoned coffee. I said correct, because I heard her order my execution the night before. He asked if it was possible his client was joking on that phone call. I responded that his client's brother brought a syringe with 8 milligrams of digoxin, double the lethal dose. And that's not a joke. He had nowhere to go, and the jury didn't buy it. After me came Derek Morrison, who testified about the hidden cameras and the footage he'd captured, looking at the jury and saying he lied for money, but their client lied to kill. Then Marcus took the stand with his hands shaking. Linda asked if he still had feelings for the defendant. Marcus looked at Rebecca saying he loved the person he thought she was, but that person never existed. Day 2, morning. Dr. Sarah Mitchell took the stand at 9, describing Bailey's poisoning in clinical detail, with 3 milligrams of alprazolam causing permanent blindness in the left eye and chronic kidney disease, stating in her professional opinion this poisoning was intentional because 3 milligrams is a precise dose and wasn't accidental. As Dr. Mitchell described Bailey convulsing, whimpering, and going blind, Rebecca smiled small and brief, but 3 jurors saw it and made notes. Thomas Wright testified next, walking the jury through 18 victims, 7 states, $52 million, and 9 aliases. FBI agent Sarah Brennan presented wire transfers, forged documents, and Ryan's notebook with 10 names and 10 doses, saying they found enough poison to kill 10 people, and this was not a one-time mistake, but a business. At 2:05, Linda stood saying, "The prosecution rests." Judge Whitmore turned to the defense, asking if they wished to call witnesses. Mercer stood, saying no, and the defense rests with no witnesses, no rebuttal standard tactic when the prosecution's case was ironclad. Day 2. Afternoon, Linda delivered her closing argument, summarizing the evidence pointing to Rebecca and Ryan and saying these two defendants turned love into a weapon, targeted the elderly, the lonely, the vulnerable, poisoned Forge Stoll, and planned to kill Victor Hayes in cold blood, that the evidence is overwhelming and the verdict must be guilty. At 4:15, the jury filed out to deliberate, and at 4:30 court adjourned. I sat on the bench beside Marcus and Thomas as the courtroom emptied and we didn't move. Marcus looked at me, asking if I thought they believed us. I thought about the evidence, the videos, the audio, the 18 families, the poisoned coffee, the syringe, the notebook, the smirk on Rebecca's face when Dr. Mitchell described Bailey going blind and said, "I don't know, son." The jury had seen it all, but would they believe a conspiracy this cruel could be real? The courtroom fell silent when Judge Whitmore entered at 9 o'clock. We stood, and she struck her gavel, once asking the foreperson to stand. Juror number 4, a retired math teacher in her mid-50s, rose holding a single sheet of paper and read in a steady voice that, in the matter of the United States versus Rebecca Marie Kane and Ryan Thomas Kane on all 52 counts including wire fraud, conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, elder abuse, identity theft, forgery, and animal cruelty. The jury found the defendants guilty. Guilty on all counts. Rebecca didn't move, with her face staying blank, while Ryan closed his eyes and exhaled slowly. Beside me, Marcus squeezed my hand so hard I felt my bones shift. Judge Whitmore nodded, scheduling sentencing for tomorrow, February 13th at 10 o'clock, and announced the court would now hear victim impact statements under the Crime Victims' Rights Act. Linda stood calling Margaret Sullivan. An elderly woman entered the courtroom, using a walker, 72, thin and gray-haired, moving slowly as a bailiff helped her to the witness stand. She sat, adjusted the microphone, and began explaining that in 2019, she met a woman named Sarah Mitchell, who said she was a hospice nurse, that her husband had just passed away, and she was alone, that this woman was kind and listened and said she'd help manage her finances. Margaret's voice trembled as she continued that, within 6 months, this woman had forged her signature on a power of attorney and transferred $6.8 million out of her accounts, telling the bank she had dementia and couldn't manage her own money, and when she discovered what had been done, the woman vanished. She wiped her eyes, saying she lost her home, her savings, her dignity, that she lives in a state-funded nursing home, now eating meals from a tray and sharing a room with a stranger, wondering every night why she didn't see it. She looked at Rebecca, saying, "You didn't just take my money, you took my trust, my future, my ability to believe people are good." Rebecca stared at the table and didn't look up. Next came James Wright Thomas's cousin, standing at the witness stand with jaw tight and hands gripping the rail. He said his Aunt Dorothy Wilson was 83 years old when Rebecca Kane, posing as a woman named Emily Hartman, became her caretaker in 2016, that within 4 months Dorothy was gone, with the initial autopsy saying natural causes. But when the FBI reopened the case last year, they found digoxin in her system, enough to stop her heart. His voice cracked as he explained Dorothy's grandson. Michael blamed himself because he was the one who hired Emily. Thinking he was helping, that 6 months after Dorothy passed, Michael took his own life, leaving a note saying, "I killed Grandma," when he didn't. She did. He pointed at Rebecca, saying she didn't just take $4.2 million. She took my aunt, she took my cousin, she took my family. 2 jurors wiped their eyes. Her voice came through cold and businesslike. She was on the phone with Ryan, telling him they were moving tomorrow morning. She said I was getting suspicious, and Marcus was pulling away, asking too many questions about the bruises. She needed it finished before he talked to me again. She told Ryan to order the digoxin tonight, that she needed it by 6 a.m. tomorrow. 4 milligrams enough to stop my heart within the hour and make it look like natural cardiac arrest. No one would question it given my age-recent health scares, stress, and supposed cognitive decline. Rebecca didn't look up. By 11:30, every juror had tears in their eyes, with several spectators sobbing openly. Marcus gripped my hand so tightly his knuckles turned white, and I didn't pull away. By 3:15-12, families had spoken with each story, the same trust manipulation, theft, devastation, financial ruin, broken families, health decline. Every statement ended the same way, saying she didn't just steal money, she stole lives. Judge Whitmore's voice was soft, thanking the victims and their families for their courage, announcing sentencing would take place tomorrow, February 13th at 10 o'clock, and striking her gavel to adjourn court. People stood, but Victor and I remained seated. I stared at the empty witness stand, with my voice coming out quiet, saying, "Dad, if you hadn't heard that phone call, if Derek hadn't warned you, if Thomas hadn't investigated, I'd be number 19. He nodded, saying yes. I turned to him, saying I wanted to do something for them, for all of them, that they lost everything and some of them lost people. But I still have you and my life, and I need to do something. Dad squeezed my shoulder, saying, "Then we'll figure it out together." We stood and walked out of the courtroom, while behind us 12 families gathered in the hallway, holding each other, crying, finally heard. 18 families, 18 lives destroyed, and my son had just found his purpose. Judge Whitmore entered the courtroom at 10 o'clock. We stood, and she struck her gavel, once announcing court was in session, and the defendants should rise for sentencing. Rebecca and Ryan stood with Rebecca's face blank and Ryan trembling. Judge Whitmore opened a folder and read in a clear, steady voice that Rebecca Marie Kane had been found guilty on 52 counts, including 18 counts of wire fraud, 1 count of conspiracy to commit murder, 1 count of attempted murder, 18 counts of elder abuse, 9 counts of identity theft, 4 counts of forgery, and 1 count of animal cruelty. She paused, looked directly at Rebecca, and said, "Over the course of 9 years, you targeted 18 vulnerable individuals, elderly widows and widowers, who trusted you, posing as caregivers, nurses, financial advisors, and fiancés, forging documents, poisoning your victims with alprazolam and digoxin, stealing $52 million, destroying families, and causing at least 4 deaths and 1 suicide." Rebecca didn't move. Judge Whitmore continued saying, the court had reviewed the sentencing guidelines, victim impact statements, and evidence presented at trial, and given the scope, scale, and cruelty of the crimes, the court sentenced Rebecca to 35 years in federal prison, without the possibility of parole, with sentences running consecutively to be served at Federal Correctional Institution, Danbury, Connecticut. May God have mercy on your soul. 35 years meant Rebecca would be 67 when she got out if she lived that long. She said nothing, didn't cry, didn't bow her head, just stood there. Judge Whitmore turned to Ryan, saying he'd been found guilty on the same 52 counts, and while evidence showed his sister was the mastermind, he was a willing participant who delivered poison, wrote threatening notes, and carried a syringe with a lethal dose of digoxin. Ryan sobbed, saying, "Your Honor, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I didn't." But Judge Whitmore struck her gavel, saying, "Mr. Kane, you had 18 chances to be sorry, with 18 victims and 18 families, that you chose your sister over the law, over human decency, over life itself." And the court sentenced him to 25 years in federal prison to be served at Federal Correctional Institution, Petersburg, Virginia. Ryan collapsed onto the table crying, and court was adjourned. U.S. Marshals approached the defense table, cuffed Rebecca and Ryan, and led them toward the exit. As Rebecca passed me, she stopped, leaned down, and whispered in my ear, saying, "You should have drunk that coffee, old man." I said nothing and just watched her go. Marcus gripped my hand, saying, "It's over, Dad." I nodded, saying yes, but I wasn't sure I believed it. 1 week later, February 20th, 2025, the news broke at noon. Marcus and I were sitting in the living room when the anchor's voice filled the room with breaking news that Ryan Kane, convicted accomplice in the Perfect Son-in-Law, elder fraud case, was found dead in his cell at Alexandria Detention Center this morning in an apparent suicide by hanging. Kane, 30 years old, was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison just 1 week ago, with an investigation underway and no further details released. Marcus turned off the TV, looked at me, and asked if it was over. I stared at the dark screen, saying, "I think so." But something didn't feel right. The news was too brief, with no details about an autopsy, no interviews with prison officials, no photos, no timeline, just apparent suicide. Late February, planning Catherine's house. Marcus sat across from me at the kitchen table with laptop open and notes scattered between us. He had been working with Dr. Martinez for 4 months now, was stronger and focused, and had a new purpose. He said he wanted to build something for the victims, for the 18 families, and for Mom, a community center where elder fraud victims can get legal help, financial counseling and therapy, a place where they don't feel alone. I thought about it saying Catherine would have loved that. Marcus opened his laptop, showing me a rough sketch of a 2-story building with consultation rooms, law offices, group therapy spaces, and a resource library. He said he wanted to call it Catherine's house after Mom. My eyes burned and I said, yes, let's do it. We started planning with location being an old building, downtown Ashford Springs, to renovate funding being $2 million from my estate that Rebecca never got, plus more through community donations and charity events, staff being volunteer lawyers, financial advisors, therapists, and case managers, and launch targeted for November 2025, 9 months from now. Derek Morrison called that evening, saying he heard about Catherine's house and wanted to help, that he was opening a theater program for at-risk youth called Second Chance Theater, and they could do a charity show donating the proceeds. I thanked him, and he said it was the least he could do, that he lied for money, and now wanted to use his skills to help people tell the truth. I hung up, looked at Marcus and said, we're gonna do this. He said, yeah, we are. But in the back of my mind, one question wouldn't let go. Ryan's suicide, why so fast? Why so easy? Why so convenient? Justice had been served with Rebecca locked away for 35 years and Ryan dead. It should have been an ending, but something was still gnawing at me. The old warehouse at 127 Elm Street had been transformed, with the exterior painted bright blue and a wooden sign hanging above the door reading Second Chance Theater in bold letters flanked by 2 theater masks. Marcus and I arrived at 6 with the parking lot full of maybe 50 people total, including families, teachers, reporters, and neighbors. Inside, the space glowed with polished wood floors, 80 simple chairs arranged in rows facing a small stage with red velvet curtains and warm lights. 40 teenagers aged 14 to 18 stood near the stage, nervous and excited, while Derek Morrison stood beside them, dressed in a crisp white shirt and black slacks, with microphone in hand, smiling wide but shaking slightly. At 6:30, Derek stepped onto the stage and the lights came up as the room fell silent. He took a breath, saying, "Good evening. My name is Derek Morrison. I'm 60 years old, and for most of my life, I was a liar." He continued explaining he was an actor who could play anyone, including fathers, uncles, lawyers, and doctors, making people believe he was someone he wasn't. And for 20 years, he used that skill to help criminals steal from innocent people. He looked down, saying he told himself it was just a job. And he wasn't hurting anyone, just playing a role. But he was wrong, because he was part of a conspiracy that destroyed 18 families, 18 elderly people who trusted the wrong person, 18 lives stolen. He looked up straight at me, saying 6 months ago, a man he'd known since college asked him for help. Victor Hayes, who was being targeted by a woman who'd stolen $52 million from 18 victims and was planning to poison him, to kill him. Asking Derek to play the role of her mother at a wedding rehearsal dinner. He turned to the 40 teenagers, saying for the first time in his life, he said no. He said, "I'm done lying," and instead helped Victor set a trap. They caught or saved his life, and in the process, he got a second chance. Derek introduced the first performer, Jasmine Rodriguez, 17 years old, and a senior at Ashford Springs High School, performing a monologue she wrote. A small girl with long black hair and dark eyes walked onto the stage, wearing a black t-shirt and jeans with no costume or props, just a simple wooden chair in the center of the stage. She sat, looked straight at the audience, and began explaining. Her name was Jasmine. She was 17 when she was 14. She got arrested for shoplifting. A pack of gum for 99 cents. The store pressed charges. She spent 2 nights in juvenile detention, and her abuela told her everyone makes mistakes. But you are not your mistakes. You are the person you choose to become. She stood, walked to the edge of the stage, looked straight at Marcus and me, and said, "I'm not asking for a second chance. I'm taking it because I deserve a story that doesn't end in a courtroom or a jail cell, but on a stage with people who see me, not my record me." She bowed and silence fell before the room exploded with everyone standing. Marcus sobbed openly and I clapped until my hands hurt. After the performances, Derek invited Marcus and me to the stage. I shook my head saying, "This is your night, Derek." But Marcus stood, walked onto the stage, took the microphone, and spoke in a voice that shook but didn't break. He said, Hi, my name is Marcus Hayes. I'm 29. 6 months ago, I was engaged to a woman I thought I loved, who was planning to poison my father and steal his money after doing it to 18 other people before him. And I didn't see it because I believed love was enough. He paused, saying, "My father saved his own life, a private investigator, an undercover actor, Mr. Morrison. And the FBI saved mine, and for months after, I thought I was broken and would never trust anyone again or have a purpose." He looked at the 40 kids, saying, "But tonight I watched you tell your stories and realized healing isn't about forgetting, but choosing what you build with what's left. That my mother's name was Catherine. She died 3 years ago. And I want to build something in her honor called Catherine's House, opening this November, where people who've been stolen from, lied to, and manipulated can find help, including legal help, financial help, therapy, and community, because everyone deserves a second chance, including me." The applause was deafening, and I stood, hugged my son, and Derek hugged us both. At 8:15, the event ended, and Marcus and I stood outside with Derek talking, laughing, and feeling something close to hope when a black sedan pulled up. Thomas Wright stepped out with his face grim, holding a thick manila folder. He pulled us away from Derek, opened the folder, and handed me a sheet of paper, saying the FBI reopened the investigation into Ryan Kane's death 3 weeks ago, with standard protocol, including dental records, fingerprints, and DNA, and they just got the results. I read the paper with my hands going numb, as Thomas said quietly, "The body they pulled from Alexandria Detention Center wasn't Ryan Kane, because dental records don't match DNA, doesn't match someone else died in that cell, and Ryan Kane is alive." Thomas explained the FBI thinks Ryan had inside help, including guards or medical staff they're investigating, and in the meantime, they've issued a federal warrant for his arrest with fugitive status and a nationwide manhunt. My voice was barely a whisper, asking, "Does he know where we live?" Thomas nodded, saying, "Yes, he knows everything, including your address, Marcus's apartment, Derek's theater, and Catherine's house construction site. That I need protection, and he's already contacted the FBI, who are sending agents." I turned back toward the theater, where Derek was locking the door and the 40 kids were leaving, laughing and happy, while Marcus stood beside me, pale and shaking. Thomas put his hand on my shoulder, saying, "We'll find him. But until we do, you need to be careful, both of you." Derek had found his second chance, my son had found his purpose, and somewhere out there, a dead man was hunting us. The call came 2 weeks after Derek's theater opened. Detective Angela Morrison said FBI reopened the investigation into Ryan Kane's death, that the body they pulled from Alexandria Detention Center wasn't him, because dental records and DNA don't match someone paid off guards and staged the whole thing. Ryan Kane is alive and missing for 7 months, and Marcus and I need protection. 2 weeks later, FBI agent Sarah Brennan called, saying they had a credible sighting of a man matching Ryan's description spotted in Richmond outside Marcus's architecture firm. That surveillance footage showed him watching the building for 3 consecutive days, and they'd placed undercover agents in the area. 3 days after that, Marcus came home to find a package on his doorstep with no return address or postage. Just a plain brown box containing an 8x10 photo of Marcus sitting at his desk, taken from outside his office window, with a telephoto lens and a handwritten note on white paper, saying, "You took everything from her, now I take everything from you. R." Marcus called me with voice shaking, and I called the FBI. Agent Brennan arrived in 20 minutes with 4 agents saying, "Marcus, you're moving to a safe house tonight. Victor, you too. We're doubling security on Catherine's house because Ryan knows your schedules, knows your locations, and is planning something." We packed bags, left our homes, and moved into an anonymous suburban house with steel-reinforced doors, panic buttons in every room, and 2 armed agents rotating shifts outside. 10 days later, FBI got a tip from Norfolk, Virginia, 75 miles east of Ashford Springs, where a man matching Ryan's description had purchased rope duct tape, heavy-duty gloves, and lighter fluid at a hardware store, with security camera footage confirming Ryan Kane, hair-dyed brown fake beard, but facial recognition software matched with 98% certainty. Agent Brennan called an emergency meeting at the safe house with me. Marcus Thomas Wright and 6 FBI agents crowded into the living room. Brennan spread photos across the coffee table, saying, "Ryan's in the area, and they think he's targeting Catherine's house, grand opening on November 18th. 1 week from now, because it's public, with 300 guests and media coverage for maximum impact, that he wants revenge for Rebecca's sentence and wants to hurt us where it matters most, our legacy. Catherine's house stood gleaming in the November morning light as the 2-story brick building had been transformed with fresh white paint, new windows, wide glass doors, and a bronze plaque beside the entrance reading, Catherine's House, in memory of Catherine Hayes and 18 victims of elder fraud. At 9:30, FBI bomb-sniffing dogs swept every room, showing clean results. Metal detectors were installed at entrances. 8 undercover agents blended into the arriving crowd, dressed as guests with earpieces hidden, and 2 snipers took positions on rooftops across the street. At 10 o'clock, the doors opened with 300 people arriving, including victim families Derek Morrison and 40 students from Second Chance Theater, local politicians, reporters, and community members who donated time, money, and hope. At 10:30, the ceremony began in the community hall, with Marcus stepping to the podium on a small stage. He gripped the podium, took a breath, and began saying, "Good morning, my name is Marcus Hayes. 13 months ago, my father almost died at the hands of a woman who had stolen $52 million from 18 families. She poisoned him, manipulated me, destroyed lives. But we survived, and today we honor the victims, including my mother, Catherine Hayes, who taught me that love is the bridge between you and everything." A side door near the stage opened, and a man in a dark hoodie slipped inside, thin and bearded. But I knew the way he moved. Ryan Kane pulled a handgun from his jacket, raised it aimed at Marcus, and screamed, "This is for Rebecca!" Time fractured as Thomas Wright launched from his seat and tackled Ryan from the side. The gun fired with a single shot, punching into the ceiling as plaster rained down, and the crowd screamed with people dropping to the floor. FBI agents swarmed with 2 tackling Ryan, slamming him face first onto the ground, wrenching his arms behind his back and cuffing him. Agent Brennan shouted into her radio, saying, "Suspect down, secure the building, repeat, suspect is in custody." Marcus stood frozen at the podium, unhurt, and I ran to him, pulling him into my arms. Ryan thrashed on the floor, screaming, "She's innocent, you destroyed her, I'll kill you. I'll kill all of you." Agent Brennan knelt beside him and read the Miranda warning in a flat, emotionless voice, saying, "Ryan Thomas Kane, you are under arrest for escape from federal custody, attempted assault with a deadly weapon, and violation of federal parole." Agents dragged him out to an armored van. The second opening of Catherine's house was quiet, with no media or crowds, just 200 people who mattered, including victim families, Derek and his students Thomas Wright, Agent Brennan, and the Ashford Springs community members who donated their time to make the center real. Marcus and I stood in the lobby in front of the memorial wall, showing 18 names carved in black granite with larger letters at the top, reading Catherine Ann Hayes, 1965 to 2022. Love is the bridge between you and everything. Marcus pulled a curtain aside, unveiling the inscription as the room fell silent. Then applause came, soft, respectful, and full of grief and gratitude. Derek stepped forward with 10 of his students, and they performed a short scene from Thornton Wilder's Our Town, the final act, where Emily realizes the beauty of ordinary life, and the audience wept. When they finished, I stood and gave the closing speech, saying, 13 months ago, I stood in a rehearsal hall and heard a whisper that saved my life. A friend in disguise warned me that the woman my son loved was planning to kill me, and because of that whisper, we're here today. I turned to Marcus, saying, "My son." Marcus designed this building. He chose every detail. This is his legacy. This is Catherine's legacy. This is our legacy. Marcus and I embraced as the room stood and applauded. Bailey, my 15-year-old golden retriever, gray-muzzled and blind, in one eye limped over with tail wagging, and Marcus knelt and hugged him. Derek led his students in a final song, Bill Withers' "Lean on Me," and the community joined in, with voices filling the hall, imperfect and beautiful. Marcus and I stood on the front steps watching people walk through the doors, and Marcus said quietly, "Dad, do you think Mom would be proud?" I put my arm around his shoulder, saying, "Yes, she'd be very proud." We walked inside together. The nightmare was over, and for the first time in a year, I could finally breathe. If you're listening to this family revenge story, let me tell you what I've learned. Trust your instincts, but verify everything. When Derek whispered that warning at the rehearsal dinner, I could have dismissed it as paranoia. I didn't. That decision saved my life. Monday night, 8:45 p.m. I sat in my darkened living room with my laptop open, Plan B camera feeds glowing on the screen. Bailey slept beside me, his bandaged eye turned toward the wall. I had replayed the footage a dozen times, watching Olivia paint bruises onto her skin and practice her scared face. Marcus had believed her. Here's my advice: don't be like me. Don't wait until poison is in your coffee to ask questions. If something feels wrong, investigate. Hire professionals. Protect your loved ones before the crisis, not during it. And remember, Grandpa stories like mine are cautionary tales. Elder fraud is real. Rebecca Kane stole from 18 families before targeting me. She won't be the last. God gave me a second chance when that phone call was recorded. I believe he put Derek Thomas and Marcus in my path for a reason. Faith isn't passive, it's choosing to fight when giving up feels easier. To anyone facing manipulation, theft, or betrayal, you're not alone. Grandpa stories teach us that survival is possible. Catherine's house exists because we refuse to let evil have the final word. Thank you for journeying with me to the end of this story. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What would you do if you found yourself in Victor's position, realizing someone you trusted was planning your harm? Drop your perspective in the comments below. If this family revenge story resonated with you, consider subscribing so you don't miss future narratives that explore resilience, justice, and the strength of the human spirit. A gentle note: while inspired by real-world elder fraud cases and family dynamics, certain elements have been dramatized for storytelling purposes. If this content isn't your preference, feel free to explore other videos that might suit your interests better.